ready? Good morning. Welcome all. I'll call the meeting of the January 27th, 2015 Board of Supervisors meeting to order. I will note that we have a quorum. Mr. Hale will not be with us today. He's out of town. We have Pastor Davis with us from Fellowship Baptist Church to do the invocation. I'd like everyone to stand, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father, I'm so grateful to be here, Lord. I'm thankful that we live in a country that allows us to govern as we do. And Lord, I know we say that all the time, but I want you to know I am grateful. I love this country, and I love where I live. And I thank you for Southwest Virginia and all that it's meant to my family. And Lord God, I just pray that you'd help us today. I thank you for these good men. I pray that you'd bless them. I pray that you'd bless their families, Lord, and their endeavors. And God, I pray that you would give them uncommon wisdom to make decisions that are not only good, but prudent and wise. And I pray that you'd help all of us today, Lord. Father, it could be there's someone in here today that's hurting, that's going through a struggle. I pray that you'd help them today. And may we leave here glad that we were here and thankful for the process that we enjoy. And most of all, I thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ. For it's in his name I ask all these things. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone this morning. We'll move right into our agenda. We've got a lot of stuff to cover today. First item is citizens' time. I have nobody that signed up for citizens' time, but is there anyone that would like to speak during citizens' time? Hearing none, I'll close citizens' time. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the meetings for January the 13th, 2015. I'll
make a motion to approve me.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Any corrections or changes need to be made to the minutes or any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6 with 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is payment of invoices.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion we pay the invoices as presented.
I have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and second to pay the invoices. Is any discussion on any invoice? Any questions? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Motion passes 6 with 1 absent. Moving right along into reports, we have the FY14 fiscal statement. Mr. Stone from Robson, Farmer, and Cox.
Chairman, board members, thanks for having me here today. I've got a little handout that I just passed around, or 2 handouts, and I'll kind of go through those as we get started. I'll tell you that the audit went very well this year. I think this was the first year in several years that the county didn't use a consultant to come in and kind of help close the books out and post all the journal entries that are required at year end. And it went very well. So I think your finance staff did a very good job in pulling together the books and making those journal entries. We still had some adjustments, and it's fairly typical in an audit, but probably not as many as we've had in the past. So we were pleased with the way the county closed out the books this year. And I think you saved a little bit of money by not using those consultants. So good job on that front. You've got a handout in front of you that says audit presentation, and I'll kind of work my way through that and then kind of open it up for questions at the end. On page 1, you're going to see some historical data, and really we concentrate on the general fund and the capital projects funds for the county, because ultimately the general fund is kind of feeding everything else. You do have a water and sewer fund, or enterprise fund as we call it, but your general fund is your primary operating fund of the county. At the top there, you can see your fund balance ended the year at $34 million. In the general fund and the capital projects fund, it was at $6.2 million. So the two combined ended the year at $40.7 million. Of that general fund balance, 33 million is what we call unrestricted. And basically what that means is it's not restricted by some outside party, that it can be used at your leisure for whatever you decide to use it for. Designated funds or funds that have been set aside for some specific purpose are earmarked by this board or by some local agency. And at any rate, the end of the year with 33 million in unrestricted funds, and that's kind of the number we key in on. As a rule of thumb, we say that number ought to be a minimum 10% of the general fund, basically all your general funds plus the school fund, less the transfer between the two, and you were well above that minimum threshold. Long-term debt for the governmental funds ended the year at 43, just under $44 million. And really, long-term debt's the highest that it's been over this look-back period of 9 years. The water and sewer fund ended the year at $31 million, and long-term debt for the water and sewer ended the year at just between $20 and $21 million. Total debt for all of those, or for both funds, and that's going to include, that general debt includes any school-related debt. In accordance with state code, when the schools issue debt, that's your debt. You're responsible to make sure it's paid back. So debt for all funds ended the year at $64.5 million. Breaking down to a per capita debt burden of about $2,195. We don't have data recent data from the state on debt per capita for all counties in the state. We have to go back to 2010, was the last time they published any information on it. But that compares favorably to the state averages back in 2010, and I would expect they've probably gone up since then. But back in 2010, the weighted average debt per capita was $2,694, and the unweighted average was $2,078. And the reason I say weighted and unweighted, the weighted average weights those higher population places a little bit higher. So Northern Virginia tends to boost up that number. But even the unweighted average, that gives you an idea of where you stand. You do have one thing that's new this year, and I put a reserve calculation down at the bottom of the page, and the reason we're only showing that for 1 year is because it just started with the most recent, I think, 2013 VRA bond that you issued. And basically that reserve requirement says you've got to maintain 40% of your general outstanding debt in cash, or the general outstanding debt balances. So 40% of your general outstanding debt balance at the end of the year was $25 million. Your cash reserve at the end of the fiscal year was $31 million. So you've covered your debt reserve by $6.9 million. But that also lets you know if you got a big capital project coming up that's going to cost $10 million, if you pull that out of cash, you're going to violate that reserve. And there are steps you have to take once you violate that reserve. So just to let you know, you need to monitor that reserve. It's one of the higher reserve requirements that I've seen out there, but as you'll see in a minute when we talk about something else, I expect to see more cumbersome reserves going forward from VRA, VPSA, any of the lending agencies. The next page, Salel asked me to compare. We did a financial forecast back in 2010, and he asked me to take a look at how you did compared to that forecast. Obviously, in 2010, we were just coming out of a recession. So the historical data in 2010, when you make a projection of revenue streams from 2007, 2008, 2009, and project out to 2014, it was a pretty dire situation back then, or at least it looked to be. The forecast, the 2014 fiscal year, the forecast that we did in 2010 predicted that you would have an increase in fund balance of about $49 million. What the actual increase in fund balance for 2014 was $48,000. The actual fiscal year increase was $636,000. So you beat that projection. The real estate tax that we estimated you would have in 2014 was 55 cents. Now, we didn't adjust any other rates, but we estimated your real estate tax would have to go up to 55 cents to generate that $48,000 in profit, if you will. Your real estate tax rate for 2014 stayed at 44 cents, and you still generated positive gain in fund balance. Total revenues for the year, we had projected just under $37 million. You attained just over $37 million. Again, we were projecting those revenues with a 55-cent tax rate, and you beat that estimate with a 44-cent tax rate. Operating and debt service expenditures, we were projecting $36.9 million. You came in at $33 million. So you actually beat your expenses were about 10% lower than what we had anticipated. And what we saw was your expenses just didn't go up. We're projecting 2 or 3% increases. So if you look at a 2010 forecast, you're expecting a 2 or 3% increase in expenditures for 11, another 2 or 3 for 12, and so on. Your expenses just didn't go up. You held the line pretty closely on expenditures. And then down at the bottom, I put the drivers of these positive variances. So basically, all your functional expenses were below forecasted amounts. Your revenues exceeded projections with the exception of real estate tax, state aid, and charges for services, which were primarily courthouse security charges. Welfare expenditures were $1.1 million less than what we projected in 2010. Regional jail costs were $760,000 less than projected in 2010. And you had an early payoff of debt last year, so that saved you about $885,000. And then just a few revenues that we weren't aware of back in 2010, couldn't project out. So overall, you did extremely well compared to that 2010 forecast. I will say, when we see expenditures that are fairly flat for an extended period of time, that usually indicates that they're going to go up at some point and hit the more normal 2 to 3% growth. So while you've experienced about a 4-year period of very low growth in expenditures, it's hard to keep that up forever. So the next page just graphs out your fund balance versus your debt. And I'm looking at unrestricted fund balance and long-term debt, and you can kind of use this graph in your mind that the closer the two are together, the better off you are financially. So if you used all of your unrestricted cash to pay off your debt, you would still have that little bit of debt to pay off with future revenues. So the closer those two graphs are together, the better off you are. But what you can see is debt has increased over this look-back period of 9 years. So has your fund balance. It's tracked right along with it.
But may I go back to
Sure.
the page, the forecast results? Of course, this was the forecast that you all
Yes, sir.
made in 2010. And I remember when we did that, anticipated increase in fund balance was $48,559, but actually was over, $600,000. But it showed an increase in real estate tax of 11 cents. If the forecast in 2010 showed an increase for 11 cents, you all were anticipating expenditures going up that much?
Well, basically, exactly. We were anticipating the expenditures would be climbing at a higher rate, so you'd have to increase the real estate tax rate.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If I may,
Sure.
Gary, the real reason for that is labor costs and associated costs with labor, that there hasn't been any significant changes in pay for anybody since that period. That's really how you control the cost. You could follow the state trend of 2 or 3%. That labor cost is huge. 3% a year at the school board would cost you $750,000, $800,000. So basically, not giving any raises, and that's how you maintain this flat expense.
Well, I guess one reason I was asking is that it showed an increase in the forecast, and I understand it was just a forecast, of 11 cents in real estate tax, but we didn't raise the real estate tax really, and we had $600,000, and I just, I wanted to throw the expense thing in there because real estate tax is one of our major economic drivers. And I guess what I'm saying here is if you just look at those numbers, it looks like real estate is not. So I wanted to throw that in there about the expenditures being, being less than we're forecast rather than, our revenue.
No, you're exactly right, and that was the key driver was that the expenses just did not go up.
Okay.
And because expenses didn't increase, you didn't have to raise the real estate tax rate.
Thank you.
And like I said earlier, it's hard to keep that kind of trend for an extended period of time, at some point, those expenses are gonna creep up on you. And I don't know where that real estate tax rate stands in relation to the state, but it's a pretty low real estate tax rate. Page 4 shows for the enterprise fund, basically net position at the end of the year. And net position is just simply total assets minus total liabilities. And typically what you're going to see with an enterprise fund, or what you hope to see, is that that's gradually increasing over time. And when I say total assets, this includes water lines, any sort of infrastructure that you have in place. We recorded at the original cost of that infrastructure, and then we depreciate it over time. So we slowly reduce the value over time. Again, that's increasing, has been increasing, going all the way back to 2006. This has a pretty positive trend. Whenever you see that tail off and it starts to go down, that means you're depreciating assets quicker, or you're depleting your assets quicker than you're adding to them. And usually that's a sign that you're going to have major repairs on the horizon.
But this also includes payment for services,
Yes, sir.
water payments, sewer payments, and that.
Exactly. It's the net position, your equity. One way to look at it is, if we were to liquidate the system today, this is some kind of a way of valuing it, at least the cost of what you have in the ground versus the liabilities against it, and cash and all assets against the liabilities. The next page shows revenue sources by fiscal year going back to 2006. And really what you can see, what this graph tells you, is that even though we've had the same tax rate for, I think, an extended period of time now, we have had some growth, and that has to come through assessments, through new construction or reassessment. So we have in that top line, you can see general property taxes, we have had some revenue growth there. Other local taxes, and that's going to include, meals tax, anything generated locally, lodging tax, anything of that nature, has been fairly flat over the period. That's the second line down. That's going to be that kind of burgundy line, if you will. And just one note on that. Telecommunications taxes, you used to collect them locally. The state now collects them and remits them back to the county. We've included those in other local taxes because if we didn't, we would just have a drop off, and then it would align again. And until we kind of work through and have 8 years worth of data where the state has been collecting and paying that over to you, we're going to continue to move it up to other local taxes.
And general property is real estate and personal.
Yes, sir. The third line down, the green line, that's Commonwealth taxes and shared revenue. Those are essentially the operating revenues you get from the state. And you can see in 2006, you got $4 million. In 2014, you got $4 million. So that's been stagnant over this look-back period. And I think I mentioned this last year. If not, I'll mention it now. What we're seeing, in this graph tells us the same thing that just about every other locality we look at. It's kind of a gradual shift of expenses or costs to the local governments from the state. So if the state
Well,
used
it's
to...
not so gradual.
But if the state, by keeping it flat, as your expenses go up, that means to pay for those expenses, that increase in expenses, you have to generate local dollars. If the state's not funding it anymore, then you've got to fund it with local dollars. The purple line shows categorical aid, including capital. And the reason we have the large spike in 2011, you had a project site grant, and I want to say that was for $3 million, as memory serves. So it was kind of a one-time grant from the state that caused that spike. Other revenue sources you can see are just fairly constant over this look-back period, so no significant growth in revenues. Like I said, the only revenue that's had pretty strong growth has been those general property taxes, which includes real estate, personal property, machinery, and tools.
And the Commonwealth of taxes and shared expenses, that includes sales tax?
No, that's going to be in other local taxes.
Okay. Okay.
The state is a conduit for that tax. What they say is they're collecting that for you and they remit it to you. For telecommunications tax, they now assess that tax
Right.
and give you some portion of it.
Okay.
But good question. The next page shows your expenditures over the past couple of years, or past 9 years. You can see education at the top has jumped up in 2012, 2013, and when we look at another graph a little bit later on, looking at their sources of revenue, you'll kind of see why that is. The second line down, health and welfare, we were projecting back in 2009, I guess, or 2010, that trajectory was going to continue upward, and obviously health and welfare dropped off. You went from about $7.2 million down to just over $6.6 million in 2014. So a pretty good drop off there from 2012. And kind of the same thing you see in public safety. You had a fire truck purchase back in 2011 that caused the spike, but then you stand in 2014 about $6.1 million, so not a very significant increase there. All your other expenses you can see down at the bottom are pretty well flat over the look-back period. So with the exception of a little bit of growth or some growth in the education function and growth in the public safety function, you really haven't had much growth in your expenditures.
In health and welfare, is one of the reasons for that decrease is savings in the social services.
It would be to the extent the local share, because
Right.
if their expenses go down, at least 50 cents on the dollar is reimbursed by the federal or state government.
Okay.
So as their expenses go down, that local share decreases. And depending on how they apply the dollars they spend, some are reimbursed at 80%, and some at 50%, it varies. The next page shows the original tax assessments by year. Personal property is at the top, and real estate is the second line down. The reason real estate is down there, we have to get it on the graph, we have to show it at 1/10 of the actual assessment value. Otherwise, we've got one line at the top and a bunch grouped at the bottom. Probably explained that last year. Machinery and tools, you kind of peaked in 2010 in your assessments, and you've had a gradual decrease since then. Public service corporations seem to be all over the map, and those assessments are conducted by the state. So I really don't know why those are going up and down so much. But I think the public service companies, AEP and whatnot, report to the state, and then they turn it into an assessment. But overall, you do have, in your two primary assessments, personal property and real estate, you do have some growth there. And you must have had a reassessment back in 2007. The next page shows the revenue sources by fiscal year for the school board. And I mentioned you kind of see why we have an increase in that local government operating. Back in 2009, state funding for the school board peaked at just over, almost between $25 and $30 million, probably around $27 million there. And then we had a pretty significant decline. That decline was picked up by the federal government. So you can see that kind of light blue line or purple line down at the bottom. You can see that increased in 2010. State aid fell, federal aid picked up. In 2014, aid from the state still hasn't reached the levels it was at even back in 2007 or 2008. So the school board is kind of slowly in catch-up mode. But their state aid, like I said, is still below the levels they were receiving in 2007, 2008. Obviously, and federal aid has dropped back to levels lower than you had in even 2006. So what's happening, again, they're seeing the same thing that you're seeing. State and federal aid is either flat or decreasing, and ultimately that pushes the burden to the local governments.
Corbin, this only includes operating costs, right? Not capital costs?
That's correct.
Debt costs? Okay.
The next page, and we didn't have too many management comments during the fiscal year, or for the fiscal year, and really I think the one that I'll hone in a little bit on this year, and I know Salel, immediately when he saw it, he called me and we talked about it a little bit. The CSA, which is on the second page, Comprehensive Services File Inventory, the CSA program. The state, obviously it's a program that's primarily funded with state revenues. And for each case file, they want to see certain things in that case file, and they want to have a certain protocol, if you will, and they want that documented. So when a child's accepted into the program, it goes through all the approval processes before funding for that child is established. And basically, we didn't feel like the inventory system you had in place was adequate to meet what the state wanted. So we recommended that you start using their inventory checklist and make sure you have all the documents that they require in those files. So if they come in and do an audit, they don't zing you. They are going around the state doing audits of the CSA program. They have essentially fined some localities, required those localities to refund CSA revenue. So we want to make sure when they come to Wythe County that your files are in good order and meet their standards, and you don't have to worry about that. I won't go over all the management comments. You've probably already seen them, but I'll answer any questions you have about the other ones.
Anyone have any questions?
I have one question, but it's not about this, it's about the information, the full audit
Yes.
that was sent to us on, just a question on Table 9, and I'll tell you what it is. It's the ratio of debt service to general governmental expenditures. It's not in this report. Okay.
Right.
All right, the ratio of debt service to general governmental expenditures, it showed that was 4.232. Can you explain exactly what that is? Because that's the lowest it's been since 04, 05.
Now, that's a good question. The reason it's that low, you paid off some debt, but basically that's taking your debt service that you paid during the fiscal year and comparing that to your total general government expenditure. So you could say if your debt service to general government expenditures was 20%, meaning that basically your debt made up 20% of your budget, that would be a problem. But basically we're saying of your entire budget or your general fund budget, how much of it is used to pay debt service? And 4.2%, that was largely driven by paying off some debt last year, early defeasance of some rural development debt.
But that's a pretty good number, isn't it?
It's very good. It's very good. And when you had the 17% back in 2012, you had early redemption of some bonds back then, so that tended to boost it up. So. No, that's a very good. Anything below 10% is good. Anything over 20% is a cause for concern.
Well, I just noticed that was the lowest it had been since, well, in 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's the lowest
Okay.
during this look-back period.
Does anyone else?
Good question. And again, that's why you were able to beat, one of the reasons you're able to beat the forecast. You cut down your principal and interest payment by using some reserves to go ahead and pay off debt.
Okay, thank you.
I know some terminology we always use is qualified versus unqualified audit, so this would be an unqualified.
This is an unqualified, you can't do any better. Like I said, we did have some recommended journal entries, but I was very pleased with the order of the books this year. I was very pleased. The last letter in the audit report is what somebody referred to as the scolding letter, but basically it covers, in the handout, it covers pages 11 and 12. Basically, if we come in to do an audit and people aren't cooperative, if they don't get us information, if they refuse to work with us, we report it in this letter. I'm glad to tell you we didn't have any issues there. If we have any concern over the practices you're using on the accounting side, like how you're depreciating assets or something of that nature, this is where we report it. Again, we didn't have any findings. We're required to give you this letter, but I don't think there's anything really to tell you in it. The last thing I'll mention is the second handout I had. It was a little article that has GASB 67 and 68 on it. And I think I talked about this and touched on it last year. During this current year, or I should say at the end of this current year, you're going to be required to report your pension liability. Your VRS pension liability. Every month you send money up to VRS, the Virginia Retirement System. They invest it for you. They calculate what your liability is, and then they tell you what your assets are. And the difference between the two is your liability that essentially you're trying to catch up to make sure that you fully fund your retirement. How they calculate that liability changes. They have to follow federal or national standards now on how they calculate that liability. In other words, if they say, when Salel Top retires, that we predict that the money sitting there for him is going to grow at 7% a year, and that's going to be sufficient to pay his retirement until his expected end date, if you will. Basically, these national standards or national requirements say you can't say you're going to earn interest on that money that's sitting there for SOLEL at 7%, you're going to have to use a rate that we give you. So what we expect to see is an increase in the VRS liability for every locality and for the school boards. But next year, we will be putting those liabilities on the books, and they're going to be significant. At the end of the day, I think what the issue that you're going to see, or the issue at hand is, are your borrowing costs going to go up because of those requirements? Because suddenly we're going to have a very large liability that to this point hasn't been on the books. So bondholders may decide they want a higher interest rate if they're going to loan money to Wythe County or Bland County or any county in the state for that matter, or any county nationally. We really won't know until the numbers come in. About this time next year, hopefully, we'll be able to compare Wythe County to some county in California of a similar size and see who looks better. Because I think that the comparisons are going to be made on a national level. Virginia may fare well against other states. Counties in Virginia may fare well against other states. They may not. We just don't know at this point. But I do think what you're going to see out of it, when you book a big liability, folks that lend you money tend to get a little squeamish. So what you're going to see is more of the bond requirements or the debt reserve requirements that you saw in your most recent VRA bond. They're going to be pretty stringent. So if folks are going to loan you money, they're going to have strings attached that we probably haven't seen in the past. And we may be looking at slightly higher interest rates, just depending on how we fare against other counties across the state.
So, excuse me, it's going to be basically like a nationally normed thing?
Say that again.
It'll be sort of like a nationally normed thing that they'll look at how each state is doing, and then...
Well, certainly for like the pool programs. VRA is a pool program that counties in the state, or cities for that matter, can go in together and issue debt together in a large, so.
But does anything, contribute to that or go outside the state of Virginia?
Well, yeah, what it is the pool program in California, maybe it's rated AA right now.
Okay.
Maybe because of the pension liabilities in California, it gets rated at an A because the pension liabilities are so high. In Virginia, maybe you're at a AAA now, maybe you drop to a AA. Or if you're at a AA, maybe because you look better than other states, you actually go up.
I guess you've given the example of Virginia and California.
Right.
What I understand that that's just an example, but I'm trying to understand what one has to do with the other.
Okay. So ultimately, the bonds that you sell in the market, you get an interest rate based on the rating of that bond or that pool. So like VPSA has like a AAA rating right now. When everybody books, all the pool participants in Virginia book their pension liability, that rating could go down because the rating is based on your ability to repay, or at least in the rating agency's minds. So, and they're rating counties and cities and states all across America. So your rating could go down relative to some other jurisdiction, and we just don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen right now. Your rating may go up. It may stay the same. We just don't know. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand, but let's say in education states that are unionized, will that skew it?
Sure, it could, because if they're unionized and they've got a large pension liability, then their bond ratings may go down.
Okay.
But let's just.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't mean to.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. But basically these ratings come out almost on a national level. So when they look to rate Wythe County, say Standard & Poor's rates Wythe County, they compare you through their model against other counties of a similar size, and maybe in Virginia they may not. And then your rating is based on how you kind of fit in. So if your pension liability is very high, then they may say we need to drop their rating because their ability to repay debt has decreased because we know they're going to have increased contributions to the retirement system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sort of trying to level things out.
It is.
Okay.
And it's also trying to recognize these pension liabilities that haven't been recognized in the past.
Are there gonna be two ratings? Is it gonna be a state-by-state rating and a county-by-county rating?
Well, with like a VRS, like a VRA pool program, they'll get a rating, which is almost a state rating, if you will. And then if you're asked to get a rating to participate in that pool, then you'll get your own rating. Or if you want to go issue bonds on a standalone basis, just by yourself, then you'll have to get your own rating. So,
So I assume by you telling us is that there's a possibility that there will be a significant change.
there could be.
Could be.
Yeah, interest rates could go, I tell folks, if you were going to borrow money in the past year or two, or within the next year, it's probably a good time to do it, because we just don't know what the impact is going to be.
Okay.
But knowing that we're going to put a liability on everybody's books, I don't see how that's going to lower your borrowing cost, even if that liability is maybe not as large as, some county in California. I don't see that's going to help your borrowing cost. I don't see how it can benefit you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
So will we have this posted online fairly soon, or what's the timeline?
Corbin, can you send a slide presentation? I think the audit's already out there.
I don't think it is. I just looked it up. I mean, I looked it up. I think it's a good story to tell. I think people will be interested in.
Actually, if we could, and I haven't looked online, but if we could do these charts that we're given, it's a visual thing, and a lot of people will understand that probably a little better.
First thing you guys do before you put it online, if you accept the audit. is
Yeah,
present
right,
it.
I know, I understand.
Has anybody ever not accepted that?
Not yet.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Stone? Thank you, Mr. Stone.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
My contact information, I believe, is on the front page of the handout, so if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we accept the audit.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to accept the audit. Do we have any further discussion? Anyone have any more questions?
I'd like to congratulate the finance department for putting together an audit that, by Mr. Stone's admission, was very good and is an unqualified audit. So, hey, that's a good thing.
I'd like to recognize all the county departments as far as keeping their costs down to the county. It's served us well in the last 4 years. Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes to accept the audit. Moving right along, Mr. Sam Crockett, Treasurer's Report. Morning, Sam.
Morning, Sam.
All right, Corbin brought the good news, and I'll bring the bad news.
I'm glad you were after him.
Glad he left. On our consolidated account report, we're currently at $57,058,000 in all of our accounts. Our general fund balance is $35,996,000. And our collections to date, we ran this yesterday. If I can get to it. We collected $16,790,666 in all of our taxes that we collected to date. That brings us, we're about 94%. And like I shared with the rest of you at the budget meeting the other day, this is the delinquent list this year, and it's the worst we've ever had. We talked about it at the budget meeting. In this many pages, we're not going to send out second notices. I print this list each year in numerical order, and this is where we do our warrant debts from. And we go through and pull out the businesses and do them, because we have to do a lot of extra paperwork on them. But this many of these things are less than $20 or less that we're not going to send out. A lot of them are still going to be exonerated. Faye's still got a bunch of exonerations they haven't had time to do yet, which a lot of these will come off then. And there's some $20 fees on there that are on there in the area too, like people that live in the town of Wythe, town of Roy Retreat, and they've got to come off. So no need wasting the money was my thought about sending these second notices out to those things. But we know most of them are going to come off, at least we'll help do. And that reduced it down. After we did that the other day, we went in and pulled that, and I think it was about 2,946 tickets that we're not going to send out. So that saved us about $1,500 worth of money just on postage and printing and stuff. So that leaves 8,868 tickets so far but the girls did some exonerations yesterday. We haven't updated that just yet. And so we'll just get started on getting those sent out. But it's going to be, I don't know if it's the economy. A lot of them are those title cars that are still on here that haven't gotten exonerated. We're up to about 6,500 exonerations that we've actually worked. Faye's worked them and we've worked them and got them off the books. As of the other day when David and I were working on this, our exonerations to date are $388,000. So we've taken a lot of that stuff off. And there's a lot more that probably needs to come off. And Faye and I are going to go on the radio Thursday morning and try to plead with people to come on in and get them taken off so we can clean their files up. But that's going to be a mess right here trying to get all this collected. Anybody else got any questions?
I've got one. I had a guy call me about he evidently owed taxes, and we did the DMV stop thing on him and all that, and he came in. Do we have and it may be for you, I don't know, but do we have a program or something that if somebody comes in and owes a huge amount of taxes that they can pay part of it or something and still go get their tags? I mean, because if they're going to make an effort to pay their taxes and we don't let them get their tags or license, then I mean, basically we're telling them, we want you to pay your taxes, but we ain't going to allow you to go to work to make the money to pay you.
If that's the person I think it is, he hadn't paid taxes in 16 years.
I was going to say he's.
I've got 10 judgments against him, 6 against his wife. Mike and him have done 2 distress seizures against him. We've never accomplished getting anything out of him. He came and talked to me. He wanted to make a payment and me take the DMV stop off. I refused to do it. I said, you're not in the habit of paying me. And if you make one payment to get your license, and we'll never see you again. So I just refused to do it with him.
Well, I mean, I was going to
And
say
the only other person
he kind of said that you told him that wasn't your problem. He said you wasn't very nice to him, but that's.
I was nice to him. He hadn't been too nice to us either.
I was going to say, but I mean, if he hadn't paid
taxes
taxes in 16 years, I can understand.
We went back and I
but,
printed him a copy of everything he owed us and gave it to him the other day.
But I mean, I was just wondering if we'd even thought about that, something like that we needed some
That
kind
defeats
of
the purpose of it.
Well, I think you work with people in advance if they know they're going to struggle.
But when that DMV stop comes on, they wait till the last day to get there and get your tags, then they're up the creek. But the bad thing about DMV stops, there's a bill in the hopper that we're hoping it's going to get defeated. I can't see it passing because DMV's going to lose so much money. That some delegate put a bill in the hopper that if July 1st, all registrations are permanent. You pay a 2-year fee, and then it's a permanent registration. The only time you'd ever have to go back to DMV is when you traded vehicles or something, or traded locality. And that would just do away with your DMV stop program. I admit it has brought in quite a bit of money for us this year. It's caught some people that we've tried to catch for years.
Yeah.
But that particular guy, no. He's never made an effort to pay a dime. The wife came in one day and laid down one of the distress seizures, says, we can't pay this, walked out the door, and that was the end of it. Never seen her again. I mean, what are you gonna do? And y'all want us to do this, to use this tool, and that I'm using it.
I agree.
So, and,
Bottom line, Sam, it's treasurer's discretion. You can enter a pay plan for people.
I know, I can do that. But there's certain people you don't want to do that for.
Well, I understand, but
He's one of them. And
But there is a there is the option of a pay plan out there.
We
If-
have
if-
people
but
on
it- but
payment
it's-
plans all the time. I
But
mean,
it's
we-
his discretion, not ours.
We have people on pay plans all the time and contracts. When we started this judicial system sale this last time, we probably had 75 people on pay plan, and we've been collecting for a year or so, and it's brought in, they've got caught up, and they ask if they can just continue making that payment, on their current taxes. So we do that, but they gotta put forth some effort, and he never has.
But if someone gets behind in their taxes or they owe taxes, whatever, they're gonna have plenty of warning before a DMV stop comes through.
Well, they
Aren't
get their
they?
tax ticket and they get their second notices, and the
Yeah.
second notice says, if you don't pay it, we're gonna do DMV stop judgments or DMV stops, or a combination of both.
But at that point, if they come in,
Yeah, we'll
you
try to
can work out
with
some,
it.
yeah.
Like I said, it depends on, if you got 10 years of back taxes, you'll pay enough to get that DMV stop
Right.
released, and I've tried it on one person, and I got screwed. Now, I'm not gonna do it again.
Well, I think you
So-
need to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, you gotta do it, that way, that's right. Those people have to make the effort too.
Yeah.
And that gentleman never has, so. I'm sorry.
Any
Keep up
more
the good work.
questions for Sam? Thank you, Sam. Faye, I know you're not on the agenda. Do you have anything to bring to the board?
Still working on exonerations.
Okay, thank you.
One thing, I got an email from Faye yesterday.
I didn't know whether to say anything about that or not, but
We didn't get the time for the agenda, but Faye's having a computer go down.
you may come up and
Yes, please.
I brought my letter that I sent to Saleo. We have another computer that has gone down. The XP box, according to David, has been added onto and used, and we can't add anything else onto it. It's just, it died. And I'm asking for, I had asked in the letter yesterday for $1,062.24, but David sent me this morning an email, $1,039 for a new computer. We don't have to have a new monitor or anything, we just need the computer and the software that goes with it. And I'd like to ask the Budget Committee if they would consider that, because Ms. Collins can't do her work on the computer without, the work that we're required without the new computer, so if the Budget Committee would.
Mr. Chairman, instead of going through the Budget Committee process,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and amend and appropriate the
$1,039.
I'll second that.
And I've got two more old ones in the office that I don't know how much longer they're gonna last. But, you can just add on to them so long and then they die. And David tells me that the XP program everybody's is going away, so. Okay?
I'd suggest you put them in your budget
Okay.
this coming year, and we'll look at them
Okay.
during the budget approval.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Okay, we have a motion to amend and appropriate $1,039 for computers for the Commissioner's office. Any more discussion? Hearing none, do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Motion passes 6 with 1 absent. Okay, Fire and Rescue Committee.
The Fire and Rescue Committee met on January 20th, 2015, and made the following recommendation, and that is to amend and appropriate $3,072 for payment of the Lead Mine Squad, Rescue Squad's volunteer workers' compensation insurance. And the reason that we are doing this is because we will realize a considerable savings by the rescue squads basically taking over the volunteer workman's compensation, and we just amend and appropriate that money rather than the county pay for all the rescue volunteers. It was a significant increase this year. By doing it this way, we're going to be saving a lot of money.
Okay, come from a committee, it doesn't need a second. Any other comments?
We'll make a note Bay Corp presented a presentation before the Workers' Comp Commission in Richmond 2 weeks ago. Bay Corp will have a new workman's comp for volunteers that
Oh.
will be offered beginning July the 1st.
Okay.
That's,
Improved and provide that what we have now is excess insurance. That's used at a reasonable cost.
that's
And,
great.
and this payment takes us through,
Actually, part of this, we're gonna send a letter to Lead Mines that says that they just need to pay it up to a certain date and cancel their insurance.
So that'd be through June 30th, roughly.
It may be through April 1st, whenever the logical date is, that they can cancel on a quarterly basis. But that was just news that happened last week.
okay.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The chair votes aye. Anything else from the Fire and Rescue Committee?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we'll move on into reports. Animal Control, Mr. Dunford. Good morning.
During the first half of the fiscal year at the dog pound, we had several physical improvements done. All of our 16 gates have been replaced. We also had 2 heaters, one in the office area, one in the kitchen area, replaced. In addition, the with Bland Animal Welfare League, they donated time and material to install a concrete pad behind the shelter for a couple outside runs. Building Grounds Department, they assisted in removal of the topsoil and the finishing of the concrete. Then, I guess in the spring, they'll be installing the fencing that will provide the 2 outside pens. Other than that, I lost my part-time person at the shelter. Some things come up, so she left, so I'm down one. I'm gonna put in a letter of request in the budget to try to make that a full-time position. That's a goal I got set, to move back from part-time to full-time. Other than that, I got the numbers wrote down. I won't go over those, but if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer anything.
Arlen, I want to commend y'all for down there working well with the groups to cut down on the number of dogs we euthanize. I mean, it's tremendous of how many dogs we have cut that we're putting other places, and thank you for that work.
It's 4 to 5%, I believe.
Does anyone else have any questions for Arlen? Stephen?
Mr. Dunford just had an inspection last week.
22nd, January 22nd, and it went very well. Very well.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Arlen.
Thank you.
Moving right around, Mr. Bowers, Building and Grounds. Morning, Billy.
Morning, gentlemen. My report is basically consisting of 2 parts. You have the solid waste department, and then we have the buildings and grounds department. Kind of over the past 6 months, for the solid waste department side, there was 5,611 tons of refuse brought in through the convenience centers themselves. I throw that number out there just to give you an idea of about how much trash. It's pretty consistent with the past, going back and looking over it. We were able to recycle through the convenience centers themselves 5.71%. That number's down slightly in comparison to the past 4 years that I have looked at it. I'm not overly concerned about it, but it's something that I wanted to try to address. I'm going to be working with the ID department to kind of upgrade and improve our website, maybe get out some flyers and stuff for people so that they can understand what we offer recycling-wise at the convenience centers. Education, I think, and then information is the biggest thing that we can do right now to help increase it, because we've given them every opportunity to recycle. Tires continues to be, I guess, the biggest issue out of it. We had a very successful day back in July, the 1st of July, that we set up with the Farm Bureau, where they came in and was able to sponsor a trailer if we accepted more agricultural and some of the commercial tires being some of the tires that would come off of like silage trucks and stuff like that would also be transferred over onto like road tractors. They came in and sponsored that, and we collected up a little over 3,000 tires that in one day, which was obviously very significant. Since then, though, we've also collected up over 3,000 tires through convenience centers. So we just keep getting a tremendous amount of tires in. I don't know that there's much, without taking in some big actions that we can do about that, we just kind of keep letting it go along. The contract that we have with V&M Recycling does basically cover all the tires, so I don't know that there would be anything, there's no recommendation that I would make for you other than we would just continue to have at least one tire a day, letting everybody know about it. I'm talking with Farm Bureau about if they want to come in partnership up with us again this year. I think it was very successful for them. They won an award for that, so if we can do that, I think that would be the best thing for everybody as far as the tires and the farmers and those people trying to get out of them.
Billy, just, I want to ask you a question.
Yes,
You
sir.
have an estimated cost of what it costs the county per tire collection day that we do?
We have a running deal with V&M Recycling. They get rid of our tires. It costs us $1,200 per trailer to get rid of tires. And you can get, depending on the size of the tires and how well we can stack them in there, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,800 tires. I know that's a big number, but like I said, sometimes some of the tires we get are race car tires. They're huge, but then they collapse really good. Some of them are these bigger truck tires, that the big 18 and 20-inch tires. They take up more room and have a lot of airspace. We pack them in as best we can, but there is a wide variance of how many we can actually get in a trailer. So I figure anything over $1,000 in a trailer, for 1,200-1,400 tires per trailer, we've really done something. So. Of course, this time we were taking more commercial tires as part of the deal, so the numbers dropped for average tires. We managed to get about 1,000 per trailer.
So roughly, it's about $1 per tire.
Getting pretty close to $1 a tire. Probably anywhere from 80 cents to $1 per tire is what you're kind of looking at. Going forward, the Solid Waste Department, the next big event that we have, besides the getting ready for, the budget-wise for the department, is the recycling rate report for the county. We'll start sending out flyers to businesses in the next, probably about March, getting in the audit surveys and stuff from that as to see how much recycling that they're doing, and we'll be compiling the reports that you'll see probably come in a status report, and it'll be on the next semi-annual report as to how much the county and where we stand with DEQ and in relations to the other counties in the state of Virginia on what kind of recycling rates we get. Typically, with county reports have been very high. We managed to get a lot of that from the like Virginia Recycling, where we call out some of the numbers where people are taking metal recyclings there. I honestly anticipate those numbers coming down. The price of metal continues to drop. The bottom of it is really kind of dropping out with the price of oil. It's dropping out. It's already right at $7 per hundred. So I don't expect to see as many people running up there over the next year, over the next 6 months to taking off their metals. They'll probably sit on it until the prices return. Do you have any questions, any more questions about the solid waste?
The income from the recycling, does that come to the county, or does that go to the contractor?
That actually, the contract we have, all that money goes back to the contractor.
But that's taken into account when we negotiate the contract?
When we negotiated contract, and since you brought it up, we had some people bid in qualify their bids accordingly, that we would keep all the recycling information. And we went through extensively crunching a bunch of the numbers, trying to figure out if the county would be better or worse taking that number. Ultimately, what happened is V&M Recycling was able to negotiate a price well below what we thought we could get. Since the metal recycling numbers, the price of it has dropped below what we were projecting. The county is actually doing very well, having taken the solid contract and not going with the fluid contract where we get the recyclables.
So even though the contractor gets the money, it's actually a real advantage for the county.
Yes. One, budget-wise, it's stabilized budget-wise, so you can know exactly what you're getting. Two, the number that we projected, which was the biggest change was going to be obviously on the metals recycling, and we were projecting that it'd be $8 per hundred. Anything at that or better, we would have come out. Well, currently it's at $7 a hundred. So at this point, the county would have to end up forking out more money on the contract to cover the cost of it. So we were able to, one, stabilize the contract by going with a lower number, and with the market doing what it's doing, it just proves that we made the right choice, or y'all made the right choice.
So the contractor actually takes the risk.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. Is there any other questions? Moving on to the Buildings and Grounds Department, I kind of put it in here. If there's a phrase that we could say for the past 6 months, it would be roof repair, because I think Supervisor Horning knows exactly what I'm talking about. That's been the big focus over the past 6 months is roof repairs. We've had Barron Springs and Sweeterville fire departments that we've managed to get fixed through RGM erectors coming in after evaluating what we thought was wrong with it, getting them to fix it. I haven't had any more reports from those two areas, the fire departments, that we've had any more issues with those buildings leaking, which I consider a victory right there. The next one is the Kins Lane Maintenance Garage. We had an issue with actually vultures or buzzards coming in, sitting on the building and tearing off the boots that were around the pipe vents. We've actually had this happen twice now. All we do is get up there and get it fixed, but there was another roof. We had it leaking down inside the building where we keep a lot of our materials and supplies and stuff. The circuit court building has been somewhat of a thorn on our side. It seems like we get one area patched up and fixed, and for some people that are just working in the building, you would think that we haven't done anything at all, which we can go back and I pull up all the bills as many times I've had the contractors down there. We patch one area, another area leaks. We patch another area, another leaks. We've had boots. So far, I think we've gotten it all stabilized throughout. Leading into the next thing, I've started having the guys do a monthly inspection that will hopefully help prevent some of the issues that we might have with roof leaks. Hopefully see these leaks, see some areas that are starting to fail on the roof before it does, and get it fixed before it becomes an actual leak. Other than that, I don't know what else we can do. The roof is still under warranty. We still have to get Johns Mansfield approved contractor to come and work on the roof, which can be problematic. I've went through a couple of them so far, roofers that say they're going to come and do it or try to bill us for stuff beyond what the work was done. But so far I've found one roofing company out of Roanoke, and they just stay covered up. So they're hard to get to come down to actually do the work, or at least that's what they tell me anyhow. But so far, I think we've got everything stabilized there. The last roof is the courthouse roof, which going on the last 6 months, we've managed to get it started. We've got the old roof taken off. It is completely sealed in and weather tight now. I haven't had any reports of any leaks that I'm aware of as far as the court roof, so that's a good thing. The bad news is this is not done yet. While it is weather sealed in with the plywood that we've installed and the ice guard and snow guard shield, which is a weather tight membrane that's put over top of it, it's waterproof, but we haven't got the metal on it yet. The contract completion date ends mid-February. They really padded out some days. I'm meeting with the contractor at the end of this week to nail down more specifically when they think they will be able to finish. Some of it's weather contingent, some of it's whether they are coming up here to work on it, the roof. So it's just a matter of me sitting down here and encouraging them and explaining to them the contract. There is liquidated damages if they don't complete by the completion date. So maybe that'll encourage them to go ahead and get that project completed here within the next month. Our department has saw employee turnover within the past 6 months. We hired a custodian. She came to work for us. We've got her trained up, and she turned in her resignation basically right about the new year, a little bit before. She had a life event, and she decided to move to Texas. So I had checked to think that we were advertising for that position, but Ms. Collins has gotten sick and hasn't got that, so I will work with the IT department, Jennifer, to see if we can't move forward the advertising that to go ahead. We had some sick days and stuff, vacation, holidays and stuff, so some of it's had to balance a little bit of the scheduling out with the custodians and stuff. Even brought in some of the buildings and grounds guys over, the maintenance guys over there to pick up trash and clean up and stuff, before we'd end up with one custodian trying to take care of all the buildings. It works okay for a day or two, but after that, it's the point you need to take care and do something. We've done that. We've managed to get all the winterization over the 6 months. Buildings and grounds is kind of a cycle. In the springtime, we get ready for the mowing. In the summertime, we mow. In the fall, we winterize everything out. In the wintertime, we basically get some other projects done when the snow's not falling. This year, we've managed to get some projects done. We haven't had a lot of snow events. Working on the Fairfield House for the extension office to be able to move in. It's a project that we're currently underway, getting some floors refinished, building handicap ramps, doing some painting and stuff like that, taking care of some other little projects around, some maintenance projects on our own equipment, so forth and so on, to be able to go forward. Getting back a little bit more on the monthly inspections. We do that. I've started doing a monthly inspection every month for the roofs, but also for the HVAC units. What I've found is that by going through and checking belts and stuff, I'm able to preventively remove worn and damaged belts prior to them breaking and somebody calling telling me they don't have heating and air. So that's kind of the one success. We also go through and check emergency lighting and fire extinguishers and other essentials for the buildings, boiler rooms, making sure motors are greased and stuff like that, and doing this more on a regular basis instead of trying to catch up to it. So far, like I said, the big success is catching those belts and stuff that I can actually, the tangible that I can put in my hand. I think that has worked well, and I will expand on that as I see the benefits of it continue.
Billy?
Yes, sir.
How much HV work do we have, estimate per year in the county?
It varies. Last month, at one point in time, we had 5 units go down. Compressors, switches, defrost boards. We have 1 compressor down, currently down. It's here at County Administration. Hours of we ended up putting in probably, I think it was somewhere around 10 hours of labor time. When I say 10 hours of labor time, that's what the contractor's charging me. You've also got the hours of supervision time, my time going in there, letting them in, and so forth and so on, to get into it, troubleshooting that I try to get accomplished, because I don't want to call in a contractor to change a belt or a fan motor that obviously is down. I usually call them in when we need to deal with the gas side of things or something into that gets into electronics, because they have the means to get the parts and stuff more readily than I do. Probably somewhere, depending on what it is, anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 per year is spent on HVACs. You don't necessarily see some of that directly in my budget, because I don't budget for complete HVAC unit replacement, which is what one of the situations that's happened here, where a compressor went down and you're changing over gas. So then you get, I come and ask y'all for more money to do this. Y'all approve it, because you like to keep the people, Stephen, in heat there. And then, but those are the basic numbers of what we're spending a year on HVAC. Some of the future projects, we've got some money set aside from capital improvements that will take care of the treasurer's office, still some work down there. We kind of got them stabilized a little bit, had some different stuff, but we haven't forgotten about them. We're going to get to them. We've just been trying to take care of a bunch of other projects. The demolition of the old social services building, working with them. Of course, the completion of the courthouse roof. And the regular maintenance, that lights, plumbing issues, different things like that that we do on a regular basis. We'll continue to take care of that as well. Y'all have any other questions about buildings and grounds?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. I don't know if it goes to Mr. Bowers or Mr. Vaughn as county engineer, but I didn't see it in either report about, current or future projects. And that's the shower at lead mines. I know we talk about that all the time. I see your face, but I just wonder where we are on that.
Same place we're always. Mr. Vaughn's working on it, and I think we talked about that in fire and rescue the other day. So we're getting to the point that's design and stuff to the health department.
Well, the reason I brought it up, and I know that it's not totally comprehensive, but I didn't see it in anybody's, report, so that was why I asked. Okay.
Well,
We're not gonna see a $500
Well, it just goes on. So, I'm sorry, that's my only question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Billy.
you're welcome. Thank you, John.
Okay, moving right along, building inspection, Mr. Tim Spraker. Morning, Tim.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Tim.
Morning.
Well, you should have 11 pages of raw data in front of you that shows all the activity we've done in the past 6 months. To me, it's baffling, but sitting down and trying to decipher, coming up with some trends from last year, looking at last year's numbers, which you probably don't have in front of you, but as a comparison, looking at trends, in short, it looks like we're still on the same level as we was last year. I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing, but looking at the top 8, commercial or businesses, garages, carports, industrial homes, manufactured homes, stick houses, remodeling, and storage buildings seem to be the top 8. Exactly just about the same amount as last year, as far as a 6 months difference. I just took last year and averaged it out. So other than that, hey, I'll remain optimistic. Hopefully the next 6 months will, it'll get a little more busy. Of course, I'm busy enough as far as I'm concerned because I'm still searching for that CBO. So, questions, concerns? That's more or less it in short.
Well, Mr. Spraker, I mean, you're saying that there's not being an increase, but you're not seeing particularly a decrease either.
That's right.
It's staying basically level.
Correct.
That's pretty good for the winter months.
I'll take it.
Does anybody else have any more questions? Thank you, Tim. I hope you're settling into your new job.
It's a whirlwind, but I'll take it. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the county engineer, Mr. Bill Ball.
Good morning, gentlemen. You should have a report in front of you, and I'll hit the highlights real quick.
During the period, we had 4 water line projects going for final closeout, and you heard the auditor talking about capital assets, et cetera, earlier. These projects will add $9,522,133 value. That was the construction cost, so that'll go on the books at that point. So we're about final closeout, working with RD to do that, which means the last few $100,000 we'll get for our reimbursement back, and the project will be over. We have projects under design right now with a projected capital asset. It will be $5.7 million for water, and the Exit 24 improvements, $1.6 million. That project is about ready to go into design stage, and I'm expecting that by the end of the calendar year, we'll be going to bids for that, and then the end of the next calendar year, we should actually have sewer system in place down there. The Wythefield Aurora Retreat project, we've got a few dollars left on the project. We've got a mini PER proposal from Pete and Bortz to see, to use the money for a couple of type projects. One of them being, what can we do with the tank up there at Radio for disinfection byproducts? There's some things that we can work with the state, but we need a little mini PER to be able to satisfy RD, so they'll actually let us use the money for that project. So we're working through that right now. All phases of Phase 1 speedwell have been completed, except for the fence around the water tank, and once that's up, we'll close out that project. Old School Road is finally finalizing. The holdup on that project was we used a lot of the money for SCADA, for all the telemetry between all the water points back to the plant, so that Don and those guys can see what's going on electronically. And since that money was for that project, but it covered multitudes of projects, all the water projects joined together, so we kind of had a delay in closing that project out. The change order for that was $27,000. That's completed now. We've accepted that work. Slab Town Route 619, we started that project on July 28th, and we finished on October 23rd. It's a small project worth about $138,000. Projects in planning stage, Kitchen, Nixon, Wilkins Road. We expect to meet all the letters of condition requirements, rural development, and expect that during the first quarter of this year that we'll get that project out to bid. Olive Branch, that was one that was requested through the board and the water committee. We're negotiating now, or will be Monday, with the architect engineer firm on their fee to prepare the PER for that project. So that'll come up, so we're moving ahead with that project at your request. Barron Springs Division 2 and 3, that's the Castleton Road, Weiser Highway portion of that project, as well as the water tank off of Sweckertown. Yeah, Sweckertown. That project is entering the letter of conditions completion stage, so we're hoping in the next couple weeks to get authority from RD to go to bid on that project. That project's going to be in 4 pieces. We expect to let the water line construction in 3 construction phases, and the tank, that will accelerate the project, and the goal is to bring that project and the Barron Springs 1 now under construction to completion at the same time at the end of this year. Speedwell Phase 2, we're finalizing that, finishing some of the easements that we need to get, and once we get these other projects kicked off, we'll be able to continue with finalizing Phase 1 Speed 2 and get that out through the RD letter of conditions. We've been kind of covered up closing projects and getting these 2 projects going out here, so that kind of went to the side of the boiler for a couple of months. Ivanhoe waterline repairs, we're coming up with a plan. We've got $200,000 in matching grants from Mount Rogers for that on the Route 94 projects. Figure out how we want to work that. We'll work that through the water committee and then get it to the budget committee on how we want to finance those repairs. We'll work with the water department. Projects under construction, Jackson School water line, they had a January 5th construction start. Water department is reviewing submittals on that project now. We've got a proposal into the water committee to amend the engineering agreement so that the construction management services with Thrasher Incorporated will be funded. That project was $44,000 to do all the PER and other management work except for the engineer management services. And 2/3 of that money we got from CERCAP and Mount Rogers and grants. So there's this very small amount we're funding through the PER stage, and then through award, and we have a little bit of money that we still need to get to actually go to construction management. So right now, the water department is picking up the slack on that and reviewing all the submittals
extra work on them, trying to get that funded so that we can give them some relief on that. Barron Springs Division One, success story there. You know, pipes going in the ground, you've seen the pictures, you know, in the paper and the radio announcements and all that, and I'd encourage you to go out there and take a look, and if you're at Hilly Haven getting a bologna burger or something, just mention the Barron Springs Water Project, and I think everybody's gonna be your buddy, because Ron and I were down there putting out the announcements about the public meeting for signing up for the service, and we couldn't get out the building without people just basically patting us on the back and thanking us immensely, so that's a win-win for everybody. As I said earlier, those projects should be completing at the end of the calendar year. Wastewater projects, I mentioned briefly, Exit 24. We've gone through all the regulatory steps, all the environmental assessment reviews, all the reviews that we had to do with the state, and all that's done. So next thing in that will be to get the flyover funded so that we can do the topography to go ahead and do the design for that plant. We don't have any digital, I believe, that's adequate for that. So as we go through that process to get it to award and bid, we'll finish that up. Transportation projects, Progress Park Connector Road. We've got coordination and preliminary data gathering has continued throughout the reporting period. And the engineering services agreement, which is in accordance with VDOT's locally administered program manual requirements, was approved on December 9th. What that means is when we get to the end of all of that, we'll be able to get reimbursed for the engineering services on that project. So that was a win for us there. It meant we did all of our procurement correctly and such to keep the highway department and their procurement rules satisfied. And the traffic studies are ongoing, so the next thing I expect from that is should be the final report on traffic analysis, and we can go ahead with a route selection on what we think we need to do. And there has been a coordination meeting with the town of Wytheville, so they've been brought into loop on the various alternatives also. The major regulatory activity that I worked on this time was, we have a permit through the Corps of Engineers for Progress Park out Lot 24, so we met our September 29th deadline to do the review of the stormwater management system and ponds, the yearly requirement, make sure we get that turned in, and that was done on time. I helped with the transition of building inspection. We had a process in place for what turned out to be about 3 months, as it turned out, and got Mr. Spraker up and running, and we had Mr. Hurst doing right seat, left seat with him for a while, and he's cut loose, he's on his own now. And attended several conferences, training events, VDOT informational briefings, Virginia-based mapping program, which will be coming up. Mr. Moore will be working with that. The VDOT local programs workshop, and went to the Engineer Construction Exchange with me and some of the folks, and got some professional development hours over in Dunbar for a day. I went to the DEQ stakeholders meeting in Charlottesville, which was interesting. Billy was talking about recycling and such, and there are challenges across the board in the state on the recycling programs. As you know, the commodities go up, the commodities go down. Glass being a major one that seems to be everybody's problem. Nobody wants to take glass anymore, so they were trying to figure out what to do with glass. Alternative landfill cap, folks are thinking of breaking it up, making it back into basically sand almost, and using it for alternate cover on landfills. But that's kind of an oxymoron, because if you want to keep it out of the landfill, but now you're going to call it alternative cover and put it on the landfill, I'm not sure how that plays, but it does meet the rules. And I went to a DEQ seminar, impact of the coordination between erosion sediment control and Virginia stormwater management programs. As you know, last year, y'all voted to opt out of the VSM program. But there are some residual requirements that I've been working with the planning department, that there are things for recording stormwater management. We have to make sure that permits are coordinated with the state DEQ before they come back around and get building permits and E&S permits from us. So we're not completely out of it. There are still administrative requirements that we have to do, but we are not the authority in the final approval per your decision. And financial activities, we've had $644,000 worth of invoices in the last 6 months. Reimbursements have come back, but we're still waiting for about $254,000 to come back in. Subject to your questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Ball?
I had one, I just want to, the Wytheville to retreat the water tank, the money that's left over, we're looking for just a little PR from Pete and Bortz to address the quality issues of the water. But And maybe I misunderstood, did you say that that's awaiting approval by?
Rural development.
Rural development.
To use the remaining funds in the
Right.
project, get permission from them to do a little mini PER. And that PER will also have a couple alternatives for the tank and maybe some estimates on how we can do some more line extension out there. If anything, at least we'll have some planning figures to be able to go back later and have something in
I
hand to
mean,
work with that.
do you have a feeling one way or the other that rural development will approve that?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
I believe we're, I think we're just going through the formality.
Great.
of it, So I'm pretty sure they'll approve it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any more questions? Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up is Communication Center, Mr. James Copeland. James?
In the report I submitted to you all, broke everything down month by month, but I won't go over that all in detail. Do want to point out, in September, the Virginia State Police came to the 911 Center and conducted a VCIN audit. And on the 29th, we received a letter from them advising that we had a very well-managed and overall good operating order VCIN operation. So we did pass that audit for our VCIN compliance. On our past 6-month projects, one of our big projects we've been working on is evaluating the county's radio system. I spoke with several local vendors, went and talked to the first responders out in the field about their radio problems they're having, and we just worked with them and gained a lot of information and hopefully a plan of potential possibilities, resolutions to some of our problems. And I did include a improved radio system in the 5-year comprehensive plan. Myself and Mr. Farley, we worked, he went and obtained a grant for us to implement EMD, which is Emergency Medical Dispatch, in the 911 Center that would allow the dispatchers to provide medical instructions, other instructions during emergencies in the 911 Center. We have a December 31st deadline to use that. It's an 80-20 grant with them funding 80% and the county having to fund the other 20%. And then, of course, in July, we implemented the citizen notification system. That's been a good success. We've tested it a few times. We've had to use it a couple of times, and we've got a lot of positive feedback. A lot of people, saying that they appreciate the system and the service. And as far as the next 6 months goals, plan to continue to determine the feasibility and working with vendors of the EMD to take advantage of that grant that we obtained. Looking just a ballpark estimate around $68,000 is what this program cost, for 4 terminals and to train all the dispatchers and things like that. So I'll be working, like I said, with vendors to obtain some quotes and information about that. Also plan and hope to continue to work with county official and radio vendors in the next coming months to develop a plan as far as replacing the county's outdated radio system. I believe it should be a high priority, for the county, and definitely be very appreciated by the communications center as well as the first responders out in the field. And then next few months we'll be working. I'll be working with Jolena from the Carroll County 911. We obtained a grant from the state Virginia Information and Technology agencies to implement a second regional mapping system right now with counties part of the merged system with Smith and Washington County, where we can share regional mapping data. And there's about 7 other counties that's coming on board here in the next few months, and I'll be working with them to get that on board because they're wanting to use Wythe County as the respiratory for their data server, since we're kind of centralized between these other counties that or want to take advantage of it. And also, forgot to mention, but we also obtained we took our, the state gives us a set amount of money each year to conduct training. We can travel, whatnot, to attend training meetings and get reimbursed for it. We chose to take everyone's money on a regional basis and just put it towards a regional training. So in the next few months, we'll be trying to get some regional training together for dispatchers and host them either here in Wytheville or maybe in Carroll County or somewhere. And another thing I have is, as far as personnel goes, knock on wood, my turnover's steadied out a little bit now, and I do have 1 full-time position that's vacant, and a few part-time positions that are vacant I'll look to fill here soon. And that's about all.
Does anybody have any questions for James?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, have we been presented with that EMD grant? I mean, I don't,
Actually, it was last year, grant we asked.
What year?
because
oh, it was like, okay. All right, that's what, I'm
We
sorry.
asked for a year's extension. We have a problem
With the,
finding a vendor that's capable of working with our communication system.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't remember that.
Anyone have anything
The
else?
regional mapping system is a big deal. Because you'll be the repository for all the mapping for Southwest Virginia, basically.
You may have anything else? Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Shane.
Next is Mercy Services, Mr. Jason Kincher. Morning, Jason.
How you gentlemen doing this morning?
Good?
Good.
Pleased to report I've been pretty busy the last month or so, learning the area, the people, county practices, and trying to integrate in with the group. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to review the very short synopsis report that I submitted. As you can see from the scope of it, that emergency services interacts with fire service, EMS, and additionally interacts with our communications department and other departments of government. So I've been learning how to travel from one to the other and make sure that we're communicating effectively, that we're all realizing opportunities for growth and improvement. If you all have any questions, then I'll skip over actually reviewing this word by word.
Does anyone have any questions for Jason? Jason, I want to thank you for all the efforts you've been putting forth, going to all the fire and meetings and rescue meetings. I think they really appreciate that, and I'm hearing good feedback.
I appreciate that, and I truly enjoy it, and I look forward to continuing that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Thank
Jason. Next, Finance Department, Mr. Bruce Grant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's good to see you all again. I've been, everybody always drops that, so I'll just put it down there.
You just throw it on the floor, huh?
Yes,
put it
I'll
there.
get it a little bit. That's part of the entertainment I get when I watch here and people come up and speak. That pen always lands down there. We've been pretty busy in the finance group this year. I think there are two seasons to our work. One is that we're entering into now, budget, which goes from January to June, it seems like, and from July through the end of November is audit season. When I came here, I've been here a little over 3 years now, so I figured out what's going on. But when I came here, there was no accounting manual or how things were done. And I think that a lot of what we've accomplished in the last year has been directed to putting together a framework so that if Bruce gets run over by the bus, then the next person that comes in will not find nothing, but will have a guide to go with. In the budget that we've been working on this year, of course, the budget was approved in June. We put the information in quarterly appropriations. We monitor the budgets each month and do the amendments and appropriations that the board has in its monthly and bi-monthly meetings. Right now, we're working on preparing the 2016 budget. And there are several pieces to the budget now. There's operating budget, there's debt service, there's payroll, and there's capital. It's good to have those four pieces separated a little bit so that you can measure those a little bit better. I come from a background of an analytical nature, and some of the work that I do allows me to pull that information out and look at it separately. The other thing I've been working on is the software integration project. The last 6 months, we've been looking at the contract negotiations, revising contract language, meeting with future user departments, and the proper fit to make sure that their system fits their needs. A redesign of the chart of accounts, that's mostly in the revenues area, and a review of current work practices and evaluation of new and more efficient processes to go. This has taken a good while, but we've uncovered some interesting things, and I think the steering has been such that we are on a course that will allow for each area to get the things that they need. We're ready pretty much to roll forward with contracts and get to work on installation.
Bruce, do we have a time? When is this going to be finished? I mean, we've got the treasurer and the commissioner of revenue. We need this spring to get this thing in place before tax season starts again, and reassessment and stuff.
I've met with Mr. Dalton. The contracts are basically ready. He's asked me for a seating chart, which I'm putting together now, that shows who's in what department, connected for what purpose. And then he wants to get together the group of various folks to sign off and go forward with that. So we're right there. I've been doing some work with the water department this last 6 months. My department does the monthly billing of the water and wastewater customers. We do the reconciliation of monthly collections. As some of you may be aware, this was an issue with the county several years ago. That is no longer an issue. That's a strength right now, according to Corbin. We prepare monthly consumption data, been programming reports, working with the water department to search for mandatory connections, work with trying to get delinquent accounts identified and collected, various different things. The audit, we performed the audit and that took us from July right on through the end of November. One of the things that surprised me when I came here, because I've done audits all my life, is that the county governments are a little bit different in that they go through July and August with their revenues. So it's not until September that you really get things that you can really do, and the auditors are in there at the beginning of October. And so it's a crunch time, if you will, for that, and it kind of surprised me. But I've put together a bit of an audit program here that will list out the steps that we need to take at year end, various journal entries we need to do, reconciliations and so forth, that will allow us to do that more effectively and efficiently in a timely manner. If you do this item before this item, that's good, but if this item then changes, you have to redo and so forth. So there's a little bit back and forth. But I've worked with the schools, and I've worked with the social services and the treasurer's department to help get that information to us quickly. I think that all the groups with our reconciliations each month have increased in the reliability of their data. That was the number one audit issue when I came here, was the reliability of the information for the auditors to make a judgment on. And the second piece was the effectiveness of working within our systems. So I'm glad to say that the risk aspect of the audit has been taken away. We've received an unqualified opinion. I'm grateful for that. We had no outside help this year. That saved the county $20,000 in consulting fees. Worked on bond issues and long-term debt with the county administrator in evaluating analysis of the 2 bond issues that we've done this summer. Schedule out long-term debt through the life of each bond and balance that with the audit. In the accounting area, we've begun work on a new OPEB study for 2016.
Mr. Grant, what's the OPEB? I mean, what's OPEB? I don't know. I should maybe.
That's one of those accounting terms that I appear smart when I say it, and
Yeah, well,
everybody
you
else
did.
does. So
You said
you
it well.
caught me on it. Other pension employee benefits.
Okay.
What it is if you retire early and have health care carry over till the age 65, that's a piece of it.
Okay.
Or if you have your spouse. And the nooks and crannies of the system.
So any benefit basically other than just your basically retirement payment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I understand. I just didn't know what it was.
You caught me on it.
Okay.
Very good. We've integrated into the payroll the requirements for the Affordable Care Act. We will now, in 2015, be required to report new statistics to the federal government. That has been trained and installed in our system, and we'll be doing that. Been programming new accounting reports to provide more efficient and faster reporting. One of the things we get when we go to the accounting system is to run a report, and you can download this into a worksheet, but then you've got the report in a worksheet. I have programs that can take that data and fill it into the format of a report like the board would like to see. The board does not want to see the output of the computer system. Most people don't, because it's more designed for accountants. But I produce a monthly report each month. I gave a report on this several months ago, and it's in and out of the monthly thing. But, for example, this is a listing of the cash balances that are in the trial balance, and you see that in Sam's report each month. This puts them in a different order and arranges them logically. So I can take this data and basically spend 1 minute running it through a software, and bam, it comes right here. So I don't have to fill in the numbers every month. I have to go through and do the checking to make sure that I got all the numbers and there aren't new ones. So those are steps that are illustrative of what I'm trying to do in the accounting area. I've worked with the treasurer's office this year to help streamline their work in regards to bank reconciliations, the calculation of the interest earnings, and we're working on daily balancing right now. And I've had an occasion to work with the public information officer on reporting for Wythe Bland Foundation grants.
Does anybody have any questions for Bruce?
Just under the Affordable Care Act, and I can't remember, but will health insurance benefits become taxable?
I am not an attorney.
I
Let
can ask
me
Mr.
say
Barton.
this. From the standpoint of what you pay, your premiums are typically paid tax-free. And if you have a flex cafeteria plan, then you can set tax-free money aside on that.
Right.
If you have an HSA plan, which you all don't, but here, I'm going to that on the outside, that will allow me to put tax dollars in there. What's happening, in my experience, is that the premiums for the month are going up. Mine have gone up from $950 to $1,300 a month, and that's tax deductible. The bad news, though, is once you pay that thing, you have to meet all your deductible before you get any insurance benefit. Well, the deductible is close to $8,000 for my wife and I. So we're using that HSA to be able to use those tax-free dollars. once you get beyond the deductibles, it's all taxable.
I guess what I'm asking is that someone that works for the school system, someone who works for the county, and part of their benefit package is that their insurance is covered for a single, a single subscriber up to, X amount of dollars. Under the Affordable Care Act, will that become taxed as salary?
I do not know.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
As long as what the employer is paying for the employee, it certainly counts as part of his compensation.
Right.
In consideration, but I don't think it's taxable.
Okay.
It's certainly not at this point in time. It may be
Right. Down
as
the
the
road.
thing rolls out.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Next, planning, Michelle Castle. Morning, Michelle.
This report, excuse me, this report is from January 1st of last year to January 22nd of this year. And I presented it this way because I wanted you all to see the work that the Planning Commission and staff has done over the last year on the comp plan. And if you'll, well, I guess you guys have this calendar. It's a comprehensive plan progress calendar for 2014 by month. And the Planning Commission and staff, Matt Rogers, is continuing to work on the comp plan. But it should come to a close over the next few months. So anyway. As far as subdivision, the year was fairly busy, and I approved and reviewed and approved about 50 subdivision plats. And you all should have a subdivision plat report that gives you all those details. The Planning Commission, as a whole, approved one preliminary plat for a lot line revision and a right-of-way dedication for an existing subdivision. And along with that came some learning of the new stormwater management regulations and how they are going to apply to the subdivision ordinance. And anyway, there's 35 new lots created in the county this year. Manufactured home, staff is working on a proposed amendment to the manufactured home ordinance. We're working toward exempting campgrounds, family campgrounds, from the full requirements of that ordinance. So that should help, individuals that want to, just do like a campground for, set up camps for like hunting and things like that. Like the one that you saw for like Ricky Kilman. Do you all remember that? Okay. Out in Miller's Creek. Anyway, the first quarter of last year, I prepared a detailed multi-year schedule of capital improvements, and the Planning Commission recommended that to you all for approval, and I think you all saw that back the first of the year. And basically, that's it. If you all have any questions, glad to answer them.
Anybody have any questions for Michelle?
I think one comment, I think what we did by allowing staff to sign off on those that meet all the requirements has made a less stressful situation for people, hasn't it?
Yes, sir. It sure has. It's made things a lot faster, the approval process a lot faster.
Right.
And that has made citizens a lot happier.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, it has.
The real question is Saturday, Duke or Virginia?
I hate to say this, but it's going to be Virginia. It is.
Wow.
So.
That's on the record.
The website is back up and running. As all-
Yes, I'm sorry. We were going to talk about that. For the comp plan, we originally, they were going to set up a website, and we were going to have all of our documents that we were working on, and our chapters and our survey and everything on there for everybody to be able to to review and look at. And I think that they, well, and, they basically admitted that they just kind of dropped the ball on that. So it took them a couple of weeks to get that back up and running. I think they had to repay the fee and things like that. But they've done that, and so.
All the chapters that are currently revised are out there to review, and we'll be sending a link out to everyone and putting information out. But that's the easiest place, instead of sending you a large email with attachments, planwith.com.
Planwith.com. I couldn't,
That's got all.
what's coming to me, I couldn't remember that link. Planwith.com. So.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you, Michelle. Moving right along, Recreation, Kevin Williams. Morning, Kevin.
Morning, how are y'all doing this morning?
Still morning.
Getting close. All right, in front of you, I gave you all the more detailed numbers on everything. I'm just gonna go down through as far as like sports and programming and stuff like that. For the youth sports, according to my numbers, we've had approximately about 1,400 young athletes involved. And this year, I've been kind of taking it all in and seeing where we've been at. And Scotty Vault's done an excellent job coordinating and working with our booster clubs and scheduling all the sporting events and working with the Wytheville Parks and Rec where either one of us would need to create that competition that everybody wants, as well as working with the surrounding counties, depending on the sport that's needed. Like with Carroll County and Giles and Freeze, we work with him with our softball leagues, and that's been very good. We're going to look into offering more clinics and more trainings for our athletes and for our officials for this upcoming seasons, and we're going to continue to provide the minimal equipment for some of our leagues, like some basketballs or baseballs, just small amount of equipment. Except for with football, we still provide like the shoulder pads and helmets. Looking into what we've done in the past, a few years ago, we had to buy all new helmets all at once. That's 300 helmets, and that's a big cost. Even though we had our helmets reconditioned this year, I'm planning to, we're working with Rydell right now on getting a quote on like 30, 40 helmets, and just buy a little bit at a time so that whenever those helmets are required to be retired or are deemed unfit, we won't have to replace 300 at one time. And that's generally what we did with the youth sports. As far as like general programming overall, I'm continuing to looking at other opportunities to provide some sort of programming or activities for the county. Since I've been here, it's been a whirlwind as far as like going from one season of sports into next, and then trying to figure out how the campground and pools run, and going on from there. I've got a better idea about how my timelines are set and where I can put in different programs that I can run. Been able to pick up and run with the programs that have been successful and already established, such as like the Bob Ross program. We had one successful program in October, and I've got two planned for March and April. One going to be offered out at Max Meadows area, and one being offered in Royal Retreat. Going to have Kids Fish Day, again coming up in May. One program that I did bring in was the movie dive-ins over at the pool. Going to plan it to have one offered each month while the pool is open. And that will optimize use of the pool, which I think we've been kind of slacking on a little bit. The Sheffy After School program was initially slated to begin next week, but I've struggled trying to find somebody to run that program, so we've delayed that until February 24th. But as of this morning, I've got about 1 to 2 more people interested that are actually going to be able to run the program that I think could be very good candidates. And I'll probably have interviews with them later on this week and have something set up then. But we've already got 26 kids involved, and I'm working with the health department on, they've provided us with some curriculum and also some help as far as doing the health screenings at the beginning of the program, so we can measure how these kids that are involved with this health and fitness program progress throughout the weeks. This past fall, we've had success with a sponsorship with the Mayor Prize of Wytheville. They sponsored the Super Bowl for the football program as well as some of the soccer programs, but I met with him a couple weeks ago, and he wants to put more money towards like Ager Park and building out through there. So we're coming up with a comprehensive list of different things that we would like to see out there or want, and then go with him and see what he would want to put money towards. And he's still interested in sponsoring some of our sports leagues and putting his logo on the kids' shirts and all that. Looking at Ager Park, we got a couple of little projects, building steps right there at the parking lot, where everybody walks up and down to get up to the upper field. Just a safety procedure, preventive measure. Also in talks with a gentleman about coming out to look at the playground and see how much it would cost to design and build and replace that playground out there. Just due to standards of playground safety, that one is in need of replacement in the next few years, especially. That is over in Ager. Campground, as you've seen in past status reports, this past year, we overall had expenses gone down this past year, but we're still in the red a little bit for the campground overall. But we did have, again, a wide amount of customers from across the county and the surrounding counties, as well as across the country. It's kind of amazing, some of the surveys I got back in, where people were from and where they were, how many years they had been coming continuously out to retreat. Believe that this coming year that marketing is going to be a key to boost our customer base, because our rates are competitive. And this year, after talking with DGIF, they're going to build a new fishing dock out there. They've got plans set, and as far as I know, they're trying to get that done this spring at some point. So that'll be a draw for people to come out and spend a day out there. Also marketing that we do have discounts for our county citizens. As soon as we put that out midsummer last year, we had a boost of people call to make reservations. People just didn't know that we had that. We also have discount rates for senior citizens, and later on before the season begins, we'll propose to you all to make an addition for a discount for veterans coming through, because we've had several people this past season ask if there was a veterans discount. The pool, it's a labor of love, guys, to say the least. It's kind of like the campground. Whenever I came in, I believe that's been neglected as far as like some of the maintenance issues and preventative cares. Hence why we had a little bit of trouble getting the pool up and running this past year. Hopefully with some of these measures, we'll be able to prevent like having to replace a motor completely, or a pump, or both, or three of them like we did this year. Again, like I said, optimizing programs or activities like the dive-ins. The three that I did just as much revenue as providing just one night of a pool party, and just building up from there. This year I'm going to send myself and two others from the buildings and grounds to get a certified pool operators certification, so that we have someone more on our permanent employee staff to be able to have that certification. Looking towards the future, there's been a couple things that for the pool cover and resurfacing. We've met about the lifetime span for those. The cover is in tatters and just needs to be replaced, and I think that's in long-term plans to replace. But resurfacing, most pools have a 20-year lifespan, and we are right at that, or if not, a couple of years beyond. Looking forward also, the lease with DGIF is coming up in the next year or so, so we're going to need to start talking with them about if there's going to need to be improvements, or we're just going to continue on for another 20 years as we think about how the county wants to invest in the campground and the pool.
I was going to ask, the pool was included in that lease?
Yes. But that's where I'm at as far as like recreation goes. Are there any questions or?
Any questions for Kevin?
I'd have one.
All right.
Is the after-school at Chevy, is that a paid position?
Yes, that is a paid position. And working through some of the funds, there's a paid position for the coordinator and then for an assistant. And I've got, like I said, as of this morning, I was already talking with a lady that is interested, and I've already got another application in. So I'm on track to get things going, and if worse comes worse, I mean, I'll still be looking for someone to hire as I'm running the program, starting on the 24th.
How many children do we have signed up?
26.
26.
And we had room up to 40. So.
Corey, you need to get out and recruit some more.
I thought maybe he was looking for a job.
No, well, that went in.
Thank you, Kevin.
Don't pay.
Technology, Mr. David Southers. David, good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to keep this very brief because I'm still under Novocaine. Went to the dentist this morning, so.
I'm supposed to be reporting that he's not here because he's at the dentist.
Yeah.
That's dedicated.
Root canal, don't.
Ooh.
Basically, the technology department serves two functions. It serves as general support for the computer systems, and also there are other, certain projects that I'll do as, to bring forward the technology of the county to, to keep up with the times. And we've done things like the iPads, moving from laptops to the iPads, moving things over to the cloud, that sort of thing. This past year, there were several programming changes. The big one was the title vehicles for the commissioner and treasurer's offices to help with those projects. As a spinoff of that, we're starting to see now they're wanting to send out the delinquent tax notices through a billing service now instead of trying to print them in-house. And because of that, I'm having to do programming for that. Those projects are just about complete. Basically, I've got to do a little bit of testing on the real estate portion of it, and then once I've got that fine, we're ready to go on those projects. I've been working with the registrar as far as the new voting equipment to help make sure that it is going to be what's going to be in the best interest of the county. To make sure that we're not getting equipment that's going to cause us a lot of problems, or we just have various issues. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong. You need to look at to make sure that you're going to be. It's doing what's going to be best for the people of the county. So it's equipment that's simple enough that everybody can use. Those sort of things. With as far as the other departments, I've been doing a lot of work with those, as designing new spreadsheets. We've done spreadsheets for the leak adjustments. We've done spreadsheets for the promissory notes, connection fees to help better track those. I'm just trying to tightening up the system, working with Bruce and the finance department, various things, W-2s. There's a lot of different places I end up having to help out a lot. So I get spread quite a bit on a lot of these things. I just wanted to hit on some of the high spots in my report. Some of the things that are upcoming, we're looking at. I've got a couple of short-term ones. We've got some DMV changes for this year because of the title vehicle changes and how we're going to process those. That's a fairly minor change. Also at the Commissioner office, there have been changes to the 760 forms for all the state taxes, so I've got to go back and revisit that and update those. I think they added like 5 or 6 lines to the 760 this year. So I've got to work on those. That should be, we're looking probably in the next couple of weeks to have those completed. I've also been working with James and Jolena from Twin Counties on the, I'm part of the committee with the updated mapping. I call it the Merge 2 grant on this because it's kind of what it's looking to be. We may or may not stay with the same company. Don't know at this stage. It's too early to say. A couple of major upgrades that are going to come forth. Just email system, cloud storage. We have both of those systems already here. And as part of what you do for regular maintenance, you have to take those down once in a while on a weekend when nobody's around and do updates on those. So that's a couple of things that have to happen. Probably the biggest single project for this year that was planned is going to be a new backup system, and that's going to provide a disk-to-disk backup with better retention and better depth than we currently have with our tape backup systems, which are getting quite long in the tooth. They're getting quite old. So that should give us a better capability as far as if we have to recover files, if there's a problem with a virus or something like that. And hopefully we'll be able to extend that out onto some of the desktops and create more backups on the desktop level, because we do have some requirements where, for example, where people are working on, especially the people who have laptops, they'll keep documents on their laptop, and those need to be backed up as well. So that's what we're doing. And I want to keep mine short, so that's pretty much what I have.
Do you have any questions for David? Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you.
Water and wastewater department, Mr. Don Chris. Morning, Don.
Morning. Thanks for having me. First, just wanted to extend a thank you for the Christmas bonuses. My staff and myself, and I'm sure the rest of the county staff greatly appreciated it. It's a nice gesture. Just a snapshot of some of the things we've been doing in the last 6 months. Leak repairs, 45 service line repairs, 17 major line breaks, new connections. These are done by county forces. We've done the 6 on Long Meadows as part of that little subdivision over there, 1 on Fort Chisel, 1 on Old Stage Road. Fire hydrant maintenance, we've done around 38. We've kind of covered some of the smaller zones or areas, Maximetta, Speeble, Ivanhoe. We'll pick back up on that in the spring and summer. Work orders, these are work orders that are generated here through the office, through the secretary, for customers that are calling in or things that we need to go check on. A total of around 500 work orders completed. And that's in addition to some of the leak repairs and things as well. Personnel-wise, I guess along with that is we were a little short-handed. First half of the year, we had a gentleman that was injured on a mower accident, and we had a fellow that left. And we did fill the gap a little bit with some temporary help. So, a lot of that work was done with really about 3.5 people for the most part. So, but luckily we filled our full-time positions that we had open. We're back to a full maintenance staff. So we're in good shape there now. Debt collection, we've been working with Mr. Barrier and the finance department, and Mr. Suthers, as he was saying, it's kind of a group effort working on the debt collection and getting the reports together. Last month we reported, we filed 12 warning debts. We did receive 5 of those folks came in and paid prior to the court date. 7, we had 7 judgment granted, so we basically are collecting on all those. The total judgment amount was $7,500. And we've had actually a couple of those folks come in and pay since then, I believe. And we'll continue to go after that money through either debt set-off program or garnishing wages. And then we're going to just proceed with, I think we've got another 12 or more next February that we'll be going after. And we're just going after these in a kind of a systematic approach to try to collect some of these debts. So. Budget-wise, for the first half of the year, we're on budget. I won't get into details of all that, but, we've got some one-time big expenditures, payment to joint operations for the New River Water Authority, and then also some debt services paid. So a big chunk of changes came out to those payments, and then our O&M expenditures were at about 40% of our budget amounts through the end of December. So we're pretty much on track as far as budget goes. Major items for the second half of fiscal year, obviously leak locating and repairs, continue to work on that, and it's a county-wide effort. I'll get into those details here in just a minute. We have some bigger projects here we need to work on. We're going to be getting some estimates to replace a water line under Ivanhoe Road. That's actually part of the Phase 1 or Phase 2, Phase 1 replacement project. I think that we received grant money from Mount Rogers to replace some water mains from Phelps Lane down through, I think it's around Sheffy School Road, where you turn up Piney Mountain Road. I think there was 2 phases of projects there. So that's kind of part of that. We're going to be looking at repairing or replacing a water main insulation in the hangers on the Max Meadows Bridge. There's a water line that hangs on the bridge where you come down into Max Meadows, and those are going to have to be repaired and replaced, getting in poor condition. We'll continue, as I said, with fire hydrant maintenance. We're going to try to concentrate in the Fort Chisholm, Ivanhoe areas. Sheffy School and the big survey areas are some of the older parts of the system, and some of those are looking a little rough, so we're going to try to work on those. And then also, as spring and summer approaches, we're back to hopefully building and grounds repairs. We've got some buildings and things we need to work on and maintain. Water production and distribution, this is just a snapshot from for basically November to December billing period, and it's the production and distribution. It's evolving all the time, obviously, with leaks and new customers coming on. The New River transmission system. This is just a total of the water that's pumped from the New River Water Authority through the joint county-town system into the town, in which we have sub-feeds off of that, and we also have customers along that line. So that system is really tight. I mean, it's about as good as it gets, 1% loss. And, the meters for those zones, they've got a tolerance of probably plus or minus a half or 1%. So, that's a pretty good zone. It's all new, of course. That's the 20-inch transmission service. So, number 2, they're the metered services. These are the county's metered services along the transmission line from New River to the town master meter. And that shows, what our purchase amounts are and what we're selling. And then our losses are in the 32% range. Again, that's, give or take a little bit, because we're measuring such a large volume of water. You have certain, you've got a little bit of give and take there. The New River supplied water to the county subsystem. So this is the water that we're purchasing from New River, and feeds into areas like Austensville, Grams Forge, the I-81 corridor, the Piney, Ivanhoe areas. And that just shows, basically, like, this is our December billing period. We're like 70% accountable, 30% loss. And it's taken into account, leaks and things that we have repaired during that period. So those known losses are things that we repaired during that billing period from November to December. Below that, you'll find a list of, areas that we've been working on for this first half of the year. These are just, I won't get into the details of all these, but it shows the areas that we're having a lot of leaks, either mainline leaks or service line leaks. And you'll see it's the big survey, the Ivanhoe, the Piney areas are where we're having a lot of water loss issues. Of course, that's the older parts of the systems that were built back in the 60s and 70s. And that's also part of the areas that we're looking at, Phase 1, Phase 2 line replacements. So we'll proceed with that. We have secured a couple $100,000 from Mount Rogers for those projects, but the county is required to match or seek additional funding to make that happen. So it's in our interest to try and make that happen. So I'll be working with Bill to see what we can do on that. With County West system, that's basically the Radio Drive, or the Wesley Highway Radio Drive down through Crockett, Speedwell Phase 1, basically down into Speedwell. We've had a little bit of a struggle there. The newer system's pretty tight. Speedwell's is an issue. It's another one of those old systems, and we have had, some high losses, as you'll see there. We just repaired a couple, actually about 4 or 5 big leaks there. So we do have that down into about the 70-30% unaccounted water range, which is pretty good. So we brought that way down. So hopefully that'll improve that area. But as with all these older areas, they pop up. You just have to stay on top of it, and that's what we try to do. So we work our way around the county and try to keep the losses down as much as possible. Number 5 are the well production, the Fort Chisholm and Max Meadows areas. We've got some pretty high losses there that we're trying to get around to now that we've been working on some of these other zones. This is well-produced water. So this is water that we're pumping out of the ground from Fort Chisholm well and Max Meadows well. So it's cheaper production costs for us. So this is one of the last places we look to concentrate on as far as bringing those losses under control. So this is our next area that we're looking at. So and that's basically the Fort Chisholm area around the school, down toward Phelps Lane on Route 94, and then the Max Meadows area itself, where we serve that with one of the wells. So if there's any questions on water, I'll ask that before I proceed on the wastewater.
Just what Mr. Ballman talked about, the tank up on Radio Drive. I mean, I know that the weather's cold now, but it'll start getting warmer, and that's when we start having more danger of, what is it?
Right, well,
EVs or
you
whatever.
have the disinfection byproduct issues.
Yeah.
Is your water age, is a water age issue. The other issue is the temperature goes up as you start losing chlorine residual, so it's kind of a double whammy.
Right, but, and maybe, Mr. Vaughn is here, I mean, do we look like we'll be able to do anything, with that before the weather affects it?
PER should be pretty quick.
We'll do our best. Right now what we're having to do is just check the water quality at that end of the system, and then we're flushing water. Hopefully, with the addition of the recirculation and aeration there at the tank will help with that issue. I'm not saying it's going to solve all their problems, but I think the real solution to it is to get some more usage down there. So if we can extend that water down, potentially get Musher Lumber online, that'll be a big boost for us if that's possible.
Well, I guess the other thing I'm asking is testing done in short enough intervals that if we see something start to go, the fluid, that we can flush the system?
weekly, actually several times a week out there. So the disinfection byproducts are a quarterly sample. So we keep our flushing up enough to where we know when we get those disinfection byproduct samples that we're comfortable that we're going to meet those requirements from the state. And that's all we can do is flush it and try to keep the water turnover. We feel like we've got good fresh water. And we do that by basically a volume calculation. We try to keep so much going out, so much going in. So it's, and the other part of that equation is that when we fix leaks, as we just did in Speedwell, which is 15 miles the other way, it's a double-edged sword because now you have that much less water that you're pushing through that system. You don't have the amount sold that you need to, or the loss for that matter. So it's either being flushed or we're losing it through leaks is kind of the problem. So, you know, we try to get more and more people on the system. Obviously, hopefully when we bring Speedwell Phase 2 on, that'll help obviously with more salt water and more movement of the water through the system. Wastewater, just a snapshot, is pretty much business as usual. Our main customers at the industrial park are pretty much discharging, you know, as normal. We haven't seen any big drop off, which obviously is good for the revenues. And as far as commercial and residential, I think it's pretty much on par for normal. Industrial, commercial pretreatment, we have obviously our permits with several of our customers there. We did, as you're aware, we had reissued some permits for Blue Beacon and Speedco and Wilco Hess. Reviewed one for VDOT. They chose not to connect their maintenance shop. And I guess here in the next 6 months, we have to reissue Gatorade, Sonic, and Amcor, and we'll be starting that process, and those are due to be reissued in August, so we'll be doing that. And as far as work orders, it pretty much is preventive maintenance items there. I won't go over all those. Budget-wise, we're on budget for this fiscal year. I think we're looking good as far as what our budget and our expenditures are so far to date. And then major items for the second half fiscal year, a lot of these are just preventive maintenance items that we're repairing or doing preventive maintenance, pulling out sewer pumps and those types of things, getting them worked on or getting them inspected before we have a major failure, hopefully. Building maintenance, we've got some buildings that we'll be looking at working on. Somewhat of a major thing is there at the treatment plant. We have some roofs that's probably going to need to be replaced or repaired. That'll may or may not go into this fiscal year. We may look at putting it in next year's budget. Generator maintenance, just keeping up with that as normal. And then, as Bill said, we've got a project, I think he touched on that, the HeadWorks screen, which is the screening device that everything comes, all the wastewater that comes into the plant screens through all the non-biological solids that takes that out. We're having some pretty major issues with that, and it's affecting the treatment process all the way through. So we're going to be looking at doing some replacement of that particular item. So, but that's about it, unless there's any more questions.
Do you have any more questions for Don? Thank you, Don.
Okay, thank you.
We go deviate on the agenda. We have people waiting over the EEOC room to do the voting machine presentation. So we're going to move the meeting over there, and we'll finish with the rest of the agenda when we come back.
Jeremy, you were that close.
Jeremy, thanks for your patience.
Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5, a matter involving a prospective new business and industry and the legal counsel.
I have a second.
Second.
Do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
chair votes aye. We're now in closed session. This is President. I'll call the Board of Supervisors meeting back to order from recess. And go back into the agenda. We have Jeremy Farley, Grant Coordinator and Public Information Officer, and Tourism.
It's only taken 6 hours for me to do this. Better be good. I won't take much of your time, but starting off with the grants here, I don't know if you have your paper with you, but an outline that I have, it's some of the grants of note. $580,392 was awarded to the county in 2014's calendar year. This doesn't include all the grants, but it's some of the highlights there. This is in addition to the roughly $500,000 that we secured in payments that were outstanding coming up to this time. Before I arrived, there were several grants that we had gotten approved for, but at the same time, we had never sent in the final reports and gotten paid for them, and so that's what this is. Some upcoming grants. Presently working on the Sheffield Elementary after-school program. Basically what this is, we made application this past time around with the Wythe Foundation. We requested $10,251 to do 2 semesters of the project. After getting in and after seeing all the expenses that had to be required, realized that this really wasn't enough to fund the whole program, and so we're going to be going back this spring here in just a few days, make an application to get funding for an entire school year, and so that'll be good for us. Rescue Squad Supplementary Fund, this is something else that we're working on, trying to secure $45,000 each per rescue squad, and this will help kind of balance some of the prices and increases that they've suffered over the years. One other grant's the Wythe County Sheriff's Office. We've been working with them. It says for tasers here, Wythe Bland Foundation, they stated very clearly to the Sheriff's Office here just a few weeks ago that they would not be purchasing any tasers, and so instead they're looking at finding funding for medical trauma kits, and this is if an officer is in a shootout, if somebody was in a car accident, the officer there in his vehicle will have some of the same equipment that would come on an ambulance, and so issues to be aware of, lack of appropriated funds for the spring 2015 Wythe Bland grant. Funds may not be there like they have been in the past for this spring, just because in the fall they spend a little bit more than they do normally. And so, that remains to be seen whether they're going to continue that spending up cycle. Grants training, that's there. I won't get into that. Some long-term grant ideas and goals regarding grants. I'd like to see the Wythe County Water Trails project. It's in there. And basically what this would be is just below the trash area or the entrance into Progress Park, have a canoe entry area where you can take a canoe, go into the Reed Creek there, and travel along. It depends on how fast you want to go. If you want to go fast, you can exit there at the Max Meadows trash dump in about an hour. If you want to take your time, it can be a 3-hour float, and so that's something for us to think about. Also, the Fort Chiswell Sidewalk Project. Last school year, I was made aware of a problem that students in the Fort Chiswell High School and Middle School area were walking on the sides of the road, and I have a picture of it there. And we've gotten, says Mr. Vaughn, I think he included that in his presentation as well. And basically, the opportunity for us to get a sidewalk through Fort Chiswell, but to do that, there will be some engineering funds that would have to be fronted with that. And so just something to think about. Public information side.
What?
Yes, sir.
Where is that at? Is that at Fort Chiswell High School?
This is right after the entrance of 94. And basically what happens after school,
okay.
The kids, they go to the Burger Express, they go to the grocery store there if they have practice afterwards. And so it creates a lot of pedestrian foot traffic with 13, 14-year-olds. And so somewhat of a dangerous situation for us to see.
The dangerous, them crossing the road there at Burger Express.
Yeah, there's no clear walkway across either, so a sidewalk would at least help divert the flow of traffic there. Public information side, this past calendar year, we launched the ruralretreatlake.com website, and it basically just gives us an opportunity to highlight the lake, highlight the different activities going on there. As far as television interviews are concerned, we've been actively trying to promote the county, been trying to promote the good side of things. That one gentleman said that we've been on TV more than the Andy Griffith Show, but I don't know whether that was encouraging or discouraging, but here are some things that were highlighted over the past month that we had featured on television. A list of press releases for the past 2 months are down underneath that. And then, of course, we're continuing with social media, and some of our reachings are on page number 6 there at the bottom of that. And then going to page number 7, tourism. Though I have not received any official word relating to my permanent role within Wythe County Tourism for the past 16 months now, I just want to say that it would be my desire to serve in this situation, to serve as the county's tourism director, if you would so grant it. Lack of understanding of not necessarily knowing the clear direction as far as where we're going with this, it's kind of hampered any long-term plans as far as the department's concerned. Should I be given an opportunity to, I guess, to serve as the long-term director, I've put some things in here. First thing I think that we should do is bring the tourism website in-house. Presently, we're paying upwards of $150 per month for a website that, frankly, it's not very good. If you look at it, visitwith.us, just not very user-friendly. It doesn't give us an opportunity to write articles and highlight different things that the county has to offer each week, and really not very reliable as far as putting it on social media and being able to spread it that way. And so if we were to bring this in-house, we could do it for $150 total and be done with it and not have to pay somebody anytime we want to make a change to it. Page number 8, another thing that we can do is take a greater role in highlighting the county's history. Different things are on there. We already had the county featured for its history on the news earlier this week. And then on page number 9, continue the programs that we've worked with. Presently, the county's tourism department is a member of the Blue Ridge Travel Association. I think membership to this organization is about $500 each year, and I've been to several of their meetings, and just put it frankly, I think it's a waste of time and a waste of county money. And so I think that's something that we should look at getting out of. And at the same time, whenever we're getting out of that, there's other organizations that we can put that money toward. The Take a Break from the Interstate initiative that we joined up as a trial membership last year, that's proven to be exceptionally beneficial. They were the group responsible for the 70-mile yard sale in Speedwell this past year. Everybody liked that, but the sheriff's office, he said it was very dangerous. And so I've been working with that organization over the past few weeks, just trying to lay out some better guidelines to make sure that safety is a better issue. Same thing with Round the Mountain. I don't necessarily believe that Heartland is a good investment, but perhaps there may be opportunities with Round the Mountain. Going on down, I think if we were to take a greater role with tourism, we should work to make sure that doing our part of the I-81 corridor is developed, because at the end of the day, if we don't have the hotels and restaurants in the Fort Chiswell area, everything we do with tourism is a waste, just because we're investing a lot of time, investing a lot of money for the town of Wytheville to get the tax revenues. And so we need to make sure that we're developing that. And so anything with tourism, I think economic development has to be at the forefront. So that's where we are. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if it goes to you or Salil needs to answer it or whoever. I was questioned by the Fair Association. Evidently, they sent a letter requesting funding from Wythe County. Where'd it go, or?
It's going to be, we're supposed to be letting them know that it's going to be included in the budget discussions.
Budget for next year? Okay. All right. I was just asked about it, so I hadn't heard anything, and I didn't know if it went to him and was asking for funding for right now, or.
Went to budget committee.
It went to the budget.
Went to budget, okay. Okay. All right.
Okay.
One question back on.
They just raised the rent for you boys. They wasn't able.
Huh?
Ain't no rent.
We've only invested $10,925.29 in promoting local tourism, with all but $925.29 going to Chicago.
Yes, sir.
They put $10,000 into Chicago.
That's what was appropriated, yes, sir.
We put $10,000?
I believe so.
That's part of the reason I was wondering about the fair. I mean, at least the fair, at least the fair has our name on it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
So does the deli mart.
Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, moving on, County Administrator's Report.
First item is a letter from the sheriff. He wants to hire an additional person from the courtroom security fund. The requirement for the rest of the year would be $18,320.
take action on that. Entertain a motion to approve the position. Have a second.
I'll second it.
Is this, Mr. Dalton, is this amending and appropriating the 18?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So is this money coming out of general funds, or
No.
is it coming out of his
Courtroom
funds?
security.
Cool.
Buying money.
Okay. Well, that's where I figured it was, but I just had to ask.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the position and amend and appropriate the $18,320 for this year's, the rest of this year's budget. Any more discussion? Do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Next item is a list of all the bonds that we paid off in the last little bit. I did some calculations. If you look at those bonds and they wrote satisfied, if you go through and calculate all the interest at 4.5 and 4 3/4 over the term of those 30-year notes, there's about $9 million worth of real savings of interest payments out of that.
How much of a debt savings per year are we saving for paying? What extra money do we have out of the?
Well, all these are water and sewer bonds.
Oh,
So they came out of the
water and sewer.
water and sewer.
Is this reduction of 9 million, was that included in the audit, or is this happened after the audit?
It was in the audit.
It was in the audit, okay. So it happened from last
Yeah.
year, FY 14.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Right before, yeah.
He made the comment that you had a reduction in debt service.
I remember now, they did it.
Next item is a letter from Mr. Williams. I asked Mr. Williams to prepare this for really make this Sheffey after-school program really work. We need $2,600 additional dollars.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to amend and
I'll
appropriate.
make a motion that we amend and appropriate $2,600 for the after-school program at Sheffey.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horning?
Aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Next item.
Next item is a copy of the letter. We are now renewal of Enterprise Zone Number 11, which includes the Town of Wythe, Rural Retreat, Fairview Industrial Park, and other areas. We have one more renewal of that after this one runs out, but that includes the corridor. So if you're building something in the park and hiring people, and even on the corridor, there's, at least on the capital side, you can get some returns on your investment from the state of Virginia and the locality. The next item is a Violence Against Women Act. I'd ask that y'all accept that grant.
I'll make a motion, we accept the grant.
Have a second. Any discussion? And this is for $24,919.
It's already in the budget. It's for an existing position down there.
Okay.
So it's already funded, no amendment and appropriation needed.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye.
Next item is a copy of the construction permit from the Health Department for Castleton Road. As soon as we get RD approval, and we should move on with advertising that.
Is any action we need to take?
No, sir. Next item is extension agent review. Annually, I send in a review on extension agents. If any of y'all have any comments or concerning that you'd like on the reviews, let me know. Next week I will be sending this back to the Virginia Tech.
Well, I think Matthew has done a wonderful job, and Chelsea, I mean, she coordinated the 4-H program the week and she went out to the various civic organizations. I know the Max Meadows Rutan sponsored a bunch of kids, Pioneer Rutan sponsored a bunch of kids, and they had a whole week just for Wythe County at 4-H Center. And she's continually developing programs and stuff for the 4-H. I think she's doing a wonderful job.
I think they both probably deserve yeses in all the categories and excellent. I just read through the survey.
Has Matthew got one that says works well with other people?
He does.
He needs a no on that one because he sent a letter out and he said he enjoyed working with everyone except for 2 people in the county, and he wouldn't name who the 2 were. He said the 2 that I didn't enjoy it knows it. I told him afterwards, I said, well, I must be one of them because every time he schedules a meeting, he does it on Tuesday night. So you must be the other one. Or you.
I got him out of the basement.
You got him what?
Out of the basement.
Yeah.
Well, there is a little issue going on with the extension that Giles is trying to get a full-time extension agent over there, and they share one with Bland, and one of the proposals from Giles was that Matthew go to Bland for 1 day a week, which I've told him we're not going to support. And I talked all the way to the Virginia Tech office about that. What Giles County needs to do is just hire a full-time agent.
You know, we have enough, we keep Matthew busy. I think has enough on his plate as it is, and just our county is having to go to Blaine County for a day.
I agree.
Well, currently that won't happen, but I'm sure that the issue won't be dropped by Giles and county.
Anything else in your
That's,
report,
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay, moving right along, we have the consent calendar for January the 27th, 2015. I have a motion to accept the consent calendar.
So move.
I have a second. Any discussion on any item on the consent calendar? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Consent calendar is adopted. Okay. Mr. Dalton, have anything, old business? I mean, I didn't separate the old from the new.
No, sir.
Have any other thing to come before the board at this time?
Is there any way we can talk a little bit about the budget now and maybe not have to come back tomorrow?
That'd suit me just fine.
Can I make a motion before we talk about budget? Or something else?
Well, it depends on what it is. Well, you can make it, or we let it come to a vote, I guess we'll see. So,
I made a motion here a while back that we send about the land in Speedwell, and I don't know where it ended up at in budget, but I'm gonna make a motion that we give the land in Speedwell to the fire department to let them use for landing zone.
I'll second it. Get it on the floor.
Thank you, sir. So we can at least discuss it and figure out where it went.
We did.
Maybe it was buildings and ground. What did I say?
yeah, it's budget.
Oh. Because of?
And if we keep taking stuff out of the auction,
putting that money in the same thing. I don't care what you do with it.
How much do we estimate it to be worth? I mean,
It's about 4.5 acres.
I thought it was 3 point something.
yeah, about 4.
I figure, I mean, realistically, it's gonna bring $1,000, $2,000 an acre. Because it's, I don't know what your use for it would be.
Well, Gene, Speedwell's got $200,000 in the bank. Why don't you just go buy it?
Okay, so you're saying then, since they were frugal and saved their money, that you're gonna penalize them?
Well, I'm not saying anything. I'm saying if they want the land, that's how they can get it.
Well, I mean, I can tell them that,
I mean, what's the difference? I mean, for a landing zone,
My only comment would be, when they came, we could check, when the fire department came, when we had that public hearing. The only one that spoke about that piece of property is the landowner that adjoined.
that owns behind it.
Nobody from the fire department spoke at that point in time
To keep it.
of keeping the land. They spoke about using the funds from the sale of the other. But that was the only person from the fire department that spoke, and that's the adjoining owner who uses access across that property.
Well, speaking of that access, I mean, that access is gonna be there regardless, right or wrong? I mean, is that a right-of-way that he's got into that property now or not?
no, it's a temporary entrance for,
Oh, okay.
Is that the only place that can land the helicopter?
No,
No.
it's just, it's a big open field that has no power lines.
And the only thing they spoke at the public hearing is they wanted to use the money from the firehouse sale. It'd be given
for a
back.
crash truck, yeah.
Yeah.
Has it come up in discussion at the,
It's come up in discussion at the fire department, it's the reason I brought it up.
Well, I'm gonna ask the Building Grounds Committee to give a recommendation, since it went to their committee, and there's 2 members here
Well, I think
present.
they've already given a recommendation, they didn't do nothing with it.
Recommendation, well, formally. Was it written and brought to the board?
No.
No,
Okay, so enter into the
Well,
record.
I mean, if you want to take a vote, we can just vote on it. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I'll vote for it because I'm on the fire department and I'm from the Speedwell area, but whatever y'all.
well, I don't know all the rules apart. Wouldn't you have to take your motion off the floor? I mean, the motion's on the floor, so it's got to be either we vote on it or
We
we
have
vote on it.
we
or
have a
table it.
recommendation from the Budget and Ground Committee to deny the request. So,
I don't know.
well, you got, speaking, rules of procedure, you got a motion and a second, so you got discussion and then you got a vote.
yep.
Unless he takes his motion off.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to take the land at Speedwell out of the auction, land auction that we're proposing to have this spring.
Didn't you include that, give it to the Speedwell Fire Department?
Well, I mean, I don't know that you, I said give it to them, but I don't know that you actually give it to them because they don't own anything, do they?
No.
I mean, so actually it would just stay in Wythe County's name. They would just be allowed to use it for fundraising and, does that make sense? I mean, basically.
Makes sense, don't mean I agree with it.
All right, I didn't
Wait a
expect you
minute,
to. I
the
didn't expect
proceeds
you
of
to.
the sale go to
The proceeds of
the county.
Yes.
The proceeds.
Oh, no. It would have to be
Of the
sold.
land
Right.
sale, yes, will go to the county.
Go to the county. All they ask for is the proceeds to the old firehouse to go
Right.
back to the fire department.
I don't have any strong feelings about the land one way or the other. I know what you just said, little strip over there, isn't it? I mean, I did think that the money from the sale of the building needed to go back to the, to the fire.
Well, we've already done that and earmarked
Yeah,
that, right?
But Yeah, this one, I don't,
Okay, we go vote. All in favor of taking the land out of the auction, taking it off the table.
Well, I guess one thing I'm going to say, you already have a contract with,
Yes.
so you're going to pay Mr. King no matter what, whether you sell it or not.
and the committee's recommendation was no.
To deny it. Okay.
Dr. House?
No, I'll go with the committee.
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Land will stay.
Hey, I was asked to bring it up, so I brought it up.
But
It's not the
I
first
told you
time,
I'd
it's
second
not
it.
the first time I've been defeated, and it won't be the last.
But like Swell said, I mean, the fire department can buy it, can't it?
Yeah.
Bid on it, yeah.
And I don't think it's going to go, it might be.
If it goes for $1,000 an acre, I may buy it and let you use it.
Rent it to 'em.
Now, wait a minute, I don't know that we can let you own land in Speedway.
Does it go to the creek?
No.
Oh,
No,
And see, I mean, it's in the flood zone, so you can't build on it.
I got a theory, Gene. It won't go for 1,000 because Hank and Linkus won't let it go for 1,000.
You may be right.
I mean, you got two people that have a vested interest in that property.
So you think it'd go for 3 or 4, 5?
I think it'll go for 3,000 probably.
Maybe.
That's about what
I figured the one that would buy it will be Wendell Talley. Well, actually, I don't know if it's him anymore, but whoever owns the rest of the bottom up through there, possibly.
Okay. We
Less
can
three.
either recess or we can.
What are we talking
continue.
about with the budget? Like, I mean,
Well, typically what we talk about is what you guys want to accomplish. It's no need to, as we send these letters out, to tell them to deal with pay raises and promotions and all that stuff if we're not going to do any of it. Just save our time. If we're going to, looks like, to be fair, if we're going to have to consider the school board raises, you're going to have to look at this. And by the time we do the budget, we're going to have the pay classification study back in, what that these people, comparative wages are. And
You're talking about figuring out what neighboring counties get
Yeah.
for the same jobs.
Yep, and what people locally are getting for the
Yeah.
same job. And I think it's y'all's or our, we should bring them up to equal pay for equal.
I think you're right.
So if we're going to discuss, that's part of the discussion, and I think if we're going to pay $10,000 for a pay classification study. If you're supposed to be making $35,000, you're making 20. Pay them $35,000 or figure out a plan how you get them there. I mean, if they're good people, you want to retain them.
yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know if it's concerning, and I don't know what the revenue projections are going to be like, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be flat, or maybe a slight increase with all that meals tax we're getting that Joe's talking about. But we just heard 1.2 million. That the secondary, to me, the secondary part of that was the capital improvements. That's the scary part's what's going to be asked, 1.2 million in operating. That's going to have to come from us, is what I heard, unless I misheard something over there.
You didn't mishear anything.
No.
The healthcare portion of it,
Non-negotiable.
we're currently paying 5% of the healthcare. Last year we had a rate, and Lee wouldn't throw it out there, but the trend, our expenses on healthcare, I watch it every month, that they send the report is about 7%. So we can figure a $42 increase in healthcare this year.
Well, where did Fox News get, they had several states there that said increase in healthcare premiums would be in the double digits.
It's based off use, Tim, and our use, Stephen doesn't go to the doctor, and Jennifer doesn't go to the doctor, y'all don't go to the doctor. I mean, it's based off use. Our pool, you talk about we're in a pool, But our pool, we've got so many people, between us and the school, we got almost 600 people, so 90 or 95% of our usage counts towards what our rate's going to be. And what we've been using, and we've had a few people sick and go to the hospital, but overall, pretty healthy bunch. So about 7% is about, I don't know what the hospital, Stephen, y'all are looking at a trend out there.
Don't we have a lot of females that are childbearing age with the school system? That's not cheap, I know that.
Boy, I'm glad that's on tape.
Well, Artie, I don't know that.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm just saying, I've been through that 3 times in the last 4 years. I know that the cost is
Well,
not cheap.
that probably offsets because they get paid $5,200 a year for 13 years, so it probably offsets it. But, you know, I think those are the issues, how we deal with health care. If we just want the numbers back in and say we're going to deal with this pay classification, we basically did a pay classification study, or the school system, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and brought everybody up to, so.
I mean, I think, you know, if we're just talking about like goals of the budget, like, I think we've got to look at the people. We didn't give increases last year. We gave the $200 bonus at the end of the year, but honestly, by the time that's taxed, I mean, it's not 200.
And
you know, and I know that was appreciated, but I feel like it would be hard, and I know we've had citizens talk about we're in a bad economy and nobody's giving raises, and I would beg to differ.
Citizen,
Well,
I think.
yes. The company I work for is increasing the amount of raise they're giving the employees, and I think as not only as the school system, but also with county employees, we're going to lose good people if we don't address that. To me, that's the number one priority outside of capital improvements or whatever, is trying to make sure that and I think what you're talking about, the pay study is impactful, and I don't know, we just saw a presentation, it sounds like for every 1% of school board coverage, you're talking $300,000, and they're going to ask for 3%. You know, if you did 1%, you'd cut half that, 1.2 million, but we've got to do something. I feel strongly about that.
So are you talking about, you know, kind of postponing a year the capital phase 2?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think we have to look at it. It's not as easy as just saying that without seeing revenue projections and things like that. But assuming that we have flat revenues, which you probably looking at the thing, we're a little bit ahead, but we're also getting a lot more tax money in the first 6 months than we're going to get in the last 6 months. So we'll probably even out. We don't have any new revenue sources that have just popped up. You know, I feel like that's got to be the top priority. I mean, to me, if you have the Taj Mahal you're having school in, but you know, you're losing people right and left that are quality, it's worse off, not only from an educational standpoint, but county standpoint. I mean, we don't want to see turnover with county employees.
The magic number last year for budget, a penny increase on real estate equals what? 200,000?
Yeah, 225 probably.
I've heard that for 7 years now. I think I've heard that for 7 years, 220 or 25.
So 4 cents is close to $1 million.
Yeah, we're,
You're looking at a nickel just for the school system.
For the operating.
That would raise us.
But that's with a 3% raise too. Have to do a 3% raise.
You do
Last
too.
time school got raised, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Year before last.
When's the last time
Well,
county
and
got
that
raised?
was.
well, you got the 5%, but that
yeah,
was,
That was.
but you took 5% too. You got 6%.
They got a 1%.
Yeah,
That kind of covered the
taxes, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been a no tax guy, and I don't know, this will go on the record, but I mean, it's looking more and more like if we do the right thing for the employees, it's gonna be hard to hold the line on the tax rate.
Well,
I mean,
Just
based
look-
on what he said this morning and what I heard and
well, you look what the financial forecast said. For us, and I think if you listen to the auditor this morning, we've basically postponed, we should have been an 11-cent tax increase, and what we've done is we've just made a flat line expenditure budget since 2010. We have not raised any expenditures, which meant no pay raises or anything else. And that's pretty admirable. There's nobody else, I think, in the state of Virginia can say that you've increased revenues a little bit, but haven't had to really go up on anything to cover all that. I mean, it's sort of I think if you went out and compared yourself to other counties, everybody'd be amazed that you've been able to do what you've done for this period of time. And I don't know that this year is the right time to do a tax increase, but I think I think you got to raise some kind of revenue somehow to cover this.
Well, a lot of times we talk about, shortfalls, then, by the end of the year, we do better than we thought. But if we're looking at schools, that much for operating budget, if we're looking at continuing with the, capital improvement, I don't see how we get around, some type of increase. Plus, it may be a good time to do it because the economy is improving a little bit. Gas prices are down. Gas prices coming down is done more to put money in people's pocket than just about anything else.
And the good portion, whatever you do, next year, these two big Appalachian projects are going to be on the tax rolls too. Mm-hmm. So you're going to, if it's $20 million between the two projects, you're going to gain about $400,000 worth of taxes from those two AEP projects. So that's an unknown income. Well, it's not unknown. You know you're going to get it.
It's going to be there.
They're building it right now.
So that could pay the debt service, just that alone could pay the debt service for the schools.
Mm-hmm.
For the phase two. Well,
Yeah, 'cause
it'd be
every
there.
year.
That 400,000 will be there for,
Yeah.
real estate. Yeah, it's not, and
It'll be there forever?
When do we do reassessments again? When would that? is
Next
that-
year.
Right after I walk out the door.
I mean, when does the process start? When does it?
It's going to start here like in a month or two.
I hope it's 2017.
And it goes on the books in
Next year.
2016,
20
January 1?
Yeah, 2011. It's got to be finished in 16 by December. We got to start it.
16, okay.
So it goes on the
Year.
books in 17.
Gotcha. Well, that's something we ought to consider, anything we do, if we get in because the economy is doing a little better, housing prices potentially going up.
Well, now, are they, I don't know about housing prices. I mean, I
Land
know-
prices is about stagnant. They're not increasing, maybe decreased a little.
I believe you can get a bargain in a house now. That's my belief.
Well, I know there's a foreclosure that was advertised in Loretto, which is the nice, where some of the more expensive homes in Wytheville are. So that's going to draw down the value of everybody in that market. But
Well, I don't think you're going to see a huge decrease in real estate market. I think high-end houses in Wythe County have probably inched up some. I think average home in Wythe County is probably close to what it was. Wythe County's really never saw that depressed market. I think that you've never seen the huge increase either. But
well, we know there's not been a ton of new house construction in 5 years. So we're not going to get a big lift with.
Well, that's what Tim said, everything's flat, but it's been flat for
several years. But, I mean, you gotta keep, it probably could go up a little bit, or it might go up in pockets. Like the last assessment, Wytheville, a lot of people in Wytheville got hit pretty hard, and some people said they went down.
And another thing we need to look at is the land use, the land that's in land use is making sure it qualifies for land use.
Now, explain to me, we don't set the rate for land use, the commissioner does, or do we?
Commissioner.
Commissioner sets it, but it's done every 5 years
I
before
think,
they reapply.
yeah, well, when you go through reassessment, you got to reapply. And she's using the CLAC value. That's a state value that's set for the true value of what a farm is or real estate. But if I had my map out here where we did the land use, I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, we've got a lot of people that abuse land use in Wythe County. What we could change is the ordinance that somehow it comes through somebody that's non-political to determine if it's land use, because 2 years ago, or 2011, when we went through it, I was told that, hey, I'm not telling them they can't have land use if they've had land use for 20 years. Well, just because you had it doesn't mean it's right.
Could we, like, change the ordinance to appoint a 5 or 7 panel board?
I think that's something we have to ask the county attorney how we can change it, put it in there. But, in Carroll County, I've got land use on the farm in Carroll County, but I get half the value. That's in their ordinance. The property values are $4,500 an acre, and I get half value.
Why does, I believe in land use. I believe the farmers, to get a break. But, I also believe that, that's what it should be for farmers that's using it.
But the year I came
what
here,
it's supposed to be using it for.
land use accounted for, yeah, go get it, Stephen. It accounted for this percentage of our taxes. Now it accounts for this. Now it accounts for this, like 20% of it.
But the $500 comes directly from the commissioner's office.
Yeah, she's.
So that's a carryover of the old way to do things?
You talking about the rate?
Well, it's been raised once in 3 assessments. When I first moved here and bought the farm, the value was $350 per acre for land use. And then 207, I think, or 202, when land was really was getting high, CIS raised it $200 to, or 150, whatever it is. But farmland price has backed off if you go to an auction or two. It's not bringing quite as.
But the commissioner
Yep.
sets that.
Yep.
We
We do not.
Yeah, the only way I think you can do that is if you set it in the ordinance, that you're only going to defer this much of a value.
I think what Tim's saying, though, is there's people who are using it, aside of from the value, there's people that are using farm use that aren't.
Under the classification of land use, don't qualify.
Right.
Well, I'll give you some good, I think are good examples. There's out in the country, in the eastern end, the guy's got 23 acre lots, 3 acres. Land use says per lot, you've got to exclude 1 acre, and then it's got to be more than 5 acres above to qualify for land use. He went in, didn't vacate the plat or anything, but he says, I'm combining these 20 lots for land use.
I don't think that's legal. If
he's
you
got
want to use it as land use.
23 acre lots.
23 acre lots.
Yep.
So he's got
60 acres.
60 acres. But, if he's legitimately farming it, then he could go in and have those plats removed
He could.
or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you could make it it could legally be used for land use.
Exactly.
But the way he's using it, really and truly,
By ordinance, it's.
by ordinance, she should say that doesn't qualify.
That's exactly right. Because anything, if you've got 6 acres, let's just say that ball field in Speedwell, there was 6 acres there. You take an acre out for the home site, the other 5 could qualify for land use if you made hay on it. And if you had an FSA number and you made more than, $1,000 a year or something, which is 10 bales of hay. You know, I mean, it's not much to make the income. I just think.
Well, no, I mean, nowadays, you can put one calf on it and graze it through the summer.
Yeah, so,
You may.
so it's not hard to get to that point, but I think if you, and I guess the other thing is, you got a lot of land out there, I think, that's in it, that's not even being farmed, it's just.
It's just there being grown up.
Yeah. Well, I think land use is a good thing.
I agree, but I also agree with Tim, it can be abused. And there probably are some out there that are abusing it.
But we really don't have a call on that.
Well, I mean, you know.
But if we change the ordinance, we would have, I don't like the fact that we don't control what it's set at, the commissioner's office.
Yeah. In 1996, there was $255,000 deferred through land use. That was out of $4.5 million tax levy. Today, you're deferring $1,141,000 out of almost $10 million.
And I don't know this, I should, but are conservation
10%?
easements assessed at that same rate? What are conservation easements assessed at?
They're automatically land use, even if.
Automatically?
Automatically.
So that means everything, conservation easement is also valued at $500.
Exactly.
And even.
It's actually 550,
forestry
isn't
land in conservation easements gets land use back. Anything in conservation easements.
And that, I assume, is by state
Did you
law?
say conservation easements, even forest land is?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything that's a conservation easement gets land use, whether it's woodland or any.
Because, I mean, like on my farm, if I've got a section of woods, it's not supposed to be under land use, right?
You can have up to 20 acres
Oh, okay.
of woods,
All right.
but if you had a conservation easement there,
Then it all would be.
it would all be. Then
I don't know that I've got 20 acres of woods.
The percentage numbers I said are calculating up, basically 5.7% was, in 1996, was given up for land use. One is 11 point some percent in 2014 is what was given up for the total revenue.
Well, I mean, on the budget side, I don't think that's going to happen this year. I don't see Fay increasing that. So, I don't think it's going to help us.
And here's another telling factor. In 1996, you had 1,044 people in land use. Now you have 1,551.
And like I say, I know some, I know one that I got a plat right there, it's got a building sitting in, it's in land use for some reason.
I think when you go through reassessment, if it takes something fixing an ordinance, that there's a more stringent look at it. And maybe it is, you have a 3-person, 7 people seems like pretty burdensome to me.
Well, yeah, probably.
But have a 3-person group of people to go out and look at each parcel and say it meets land use. Actually, you don't even have to go out. You can look at it on the GIS now and tell if it meets it or not, because all those parcels show up.
It's amazing what you can see on Google Earth.
One thing, getting back to the budget, like it's been discussed at some point, and I can't remember who brought it up or when, but about forecasting a little. I mean, it seems like we kind of live year to year. Like, all right, we just heard the school board news. We're going to hear news, I'm sure, from other departments and lack of state funding. But there's things like the Appalachian project. There's things like, some potential industrial investment that'll produce revenue. I mean, are there accurate forecasting models available, Salil, for us to kind of think about? You don't want to just, in my opinion, just move the tax rate. Well, the school needs this here, so let's move it here, and then we get a big industry, and we pull the tax rate back down. You know what I'm saying?
You might be able to on something like the Appalachian project, but I think that even though we've talked about some possible industries, we can't count on any of those until they're here.
No. Yeah. The industries, whether it be something we just talked about was going to bring in $100 million a year. I think if you're forecasting Easter eggs, pretty soon you're going to find some rotten ones out there because they'll just never materialize. I think what you can do is with these utility things that you can pretty much, they announce them 2 years in advance. We know what they're going to spend on AEP lines. The one that's going towards West Virginia has got so many miles, in Wythe County 5, I believe, and it's $1 million a mile. That's what it costs to build. The 138 coming from Foster Falls and the 3 new transformers. We know those 3 transformers cost $20 million. The AEP will tell you that. We could get their future investments from them. I don't think they'd hide that from you. But you got to be careful with that because AEP, Norfolk and Southern, their assessments is based off your sales ratio of your houses. When you go 5 years between assessments, and if that assessment's not close to 100%, if it's 90%, AEP only pays 90% of what the value of their property is. I mean, you could lose big time.
And one challenge is also on the machinery and tools tax, which based on phase initial numbers this year, we're losing 200,000 or so on machinery and tools tax because they've hit that 5-year threshold where it drops 50% down to 20%. And that's sometimes difficult to know whether all these industries are reinvesting in machinery and tools or not. It's easy when a new one's coming in. You've got 5 years coming out, but the continuation makes it difficult.
So the answer is no.
And it's up for them for self-reporting.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Well, every year, as we go through a party, we throw in a projected increase or percentage for real estate. Historically, Wythe County has grown anywhere from 1% to 5 or 6% real estate value per year. And I think, generically speaking, we know what car values are going to go up, and you can go get the NADA book and say Steve Willis's Tahoe or whatever it is, last year it's going to depreciate by 10%. And I mean, it's not. I don't think have ever been too far off. Matter of fact, I guess if that's one thing that we've done well in the 20 years I've been here, we've forecast annually pretty good.
And most of the time, on purpose, we forecast on the soft side. Yeah, so that it always, it ends up better than.
Now, one of the things I think we could do we probably should do it earlier than later this year, is go through this, see if there's going to be any real savings in this year's budget. If there's going to be some, last year we turned in $1 million. And that
But you
was,
said don't expect that this year.
well, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. We're not going to change our philosophy of just buying stuff. If we, that could be a way to do the A&E services for the, because it's a one-time event for the, maybe for the schools, capital improvements. I mean, it's,
How much can they save on their fuel costs to put towards that next year?
well, currently, when they started this year, diesel was $3.89. You take off the 45 cents tax, so they were at $3.25 rack price, and they're paying $2.25 rack price. So, yeah, but about $1 a gallon, and whatever they said in the budget last year, $60,000 or 80. But they probably bought a bus with that, because they didn't include any buses in last year's. And they've bought a couple of buses, I've noticed. So they've saved some money somewhere.
Big buses?
Yeah.
Well, one thing we saw a lot in the presentation today was about the increase in this,
Well, I
increase
say
in
big
that.
buses.
We didn't see many things about, well, we're going to save
I
here.
was just thinking of handicap buses. I mean, a lot of times they get them on grants or something.
Definitely.
But, because I seen one of them today that was fairly new because it's different looking. And I haven't seen any new big buses.
I mean, he did a good job of putting out the 1.2 million of increases, but I would assume there'll be some decreases. Maybe that'll be one.
You know,
And I respectfully a lot, but, one of his employees came out the door and said, y'all got to make them quit wasting money before you give them more money.
Well, Artie was talking about salaries. I'll tell you the thing that concerns me for school board people, I mean, for teachers and people who work, for the county is, certainly it's a salary item, but it's the health insurance. I mean, I'm looking at these rates that, Mr. Stone put on his report, and right now, on the lower end, a family plan is $1,091.37 a month. And if you've got kids and you feel like you've got to add dental to it, that adds another $104, which comes out to $1,195.80. And I know that if you work for the school system or you work for the county, how much do we pay?
Toward that family?
No, we only just pay the part of the single subscribers. So
$560,
how much?
about $560 is what we pay. Because the single premium is $604 now, is that right? $605? Is that what he showed?
Single, well, that can't be right. Well, it says employees participant under Anthem HMO, is that the?
Well, you got two, you got the expanded and you got the basic.
Well, he calls it a PPO and an HMO. All right, the HMO is the lesser?
What's the HMO?
I don't know what he's, I hate to say, I don't know what he's talking about.
All right, the employee, the single premium here is $382.95?
No.
More than that.
It's
All right, well,
five,
it's
five
our,
something.
what are our
604 is, or 605 is what the premium rate. We paid 95% of that. If you got a calculator, that'll tell you.
well, that's about $590.
Yeah.
All right. What's the family plan? Does anybody know offhand? Well, I don't know where you got this stuff then.
Who's that from?
Huh?
Who's that from?
That's on the financial report, page 51.
Farmer dotted.
Our auditor's report?
Yes.
Yeah, it says, funding policy, the school board currently pays for post-retirement health care benefits on a pay-as-you-go basis. The school board currently has 625 employees that are eligible for the program. In addition, for the retirees of the school board, 100% of the premiums are the responsibility of the retiree. The rates were as follows. Maybe that's a retiree rate? I don't know.
Yeah.
Paying the same rate we?
Well, that's what I thought. It's on page 51. I don't know. But I guess what I'm saying is that, if somebody makes $36,000 a year, that means that their gross pay is $3,000 a month. Now, I know that, a lot of our county employees don't make that. And if they have to carry the family, if they have to carry the family, I mean, that's a big, big burden.
Most of them can't afford it because, just right off the top of my head, I think it's about carrying through the family plan out of your pocket. It's about $900.
Well, and that's a third. I mean, for somebody that's making $36,000, and we've got a lot of county employees, like I said, that don't. That's a third of their gross salary just to try to have health insurance. Honestly, I almost would rather increase what we pay for health insurance than raise.
What page are you looking at, Gary? 51?
Well, he's got it on page 51, I mean, of his report. Now, I don't know.
Well, on his report.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find out what page it is.
Page 91 of our board packet.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, don't we pay the same thing?
Yeah, no, we don't. The school employees pay 90, the schools pay 92%, and the employees pay 7 or 8%.
Well, what's on page 49 then, is that correct?
Well, 51 is not correct because he's broken out dental and everything else out of that.
All right, but
At
look
one
on
time,
page
that was our premium.
49, is that right?
That was the year that this report was done, which was the year before we're currently in.
But it's went up 6%.
Yeah. Yeah. So the year they were in, this audit report, which is ended June the 30th, 2014, so this was the 13-14 rate. School year 13-14.
Okay. So the family plan for the Key Advantage 500 is $939.85. The employee cost per paycheck is that right? $469.93.
That's per month.
Per pay period. Oh, that's right. Okay. Twice a month. So, all right, so it's employee cost per month. That's $939.85. Yeah, so.
Worse than what I said.
I mean, but really, if you look at somebody, I don't know, Slim, what's the average salary for, let's say somebody works at the water department?
25 maybe.
25, so, all right, so roughly, $2,000 a month gross. And if they have to carry their family, then that cuts their gross, that's half their gross pay. And I mean, I think it's good that we only had what did we have last year, 8% increase in health care, whatever? And so you think it's going to be about a 7?
I get a copy of the expenditures that they're paying out. I don't get it, that Gary Houseman's used it or anything.
Right.
But when they roll it through the system, I get an email that says, usage this past month, 120,000, 40,000, whatever it is. And it's just, we're doing better than we did last year, so, but it's still, people have sickness. I mean, you go in, poor Martha had appendicitis. I mean, Stephen and gouged her, she got a bill of $20,000 probably for a day in the hospital. Who knows? It's just.
Well, I know being in a big pool can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. It can be a good thing and it dilutes those costs, but it can be a bad thing if
Well,
there's a lot of
I
people.
can tell you the state insurance is not that great of a deal. It's not. I mean, to be self-insured, all they do is pay Blue Cross and Blue Shield to administer the program. All claims is paid out of the general fund, and it's not a good deal for what they give state employees and retirees.
But it is a concern here. It's always been a concern. We've lost people. A lot of young people, they went to places like Klockner. The pay's not so great at Klockner. They probably make just about the same here, but Klockner pays
The
family
benefits.
plan. Same thing for Hardy over in Pulaski and Volvo. A lot of people don't really like that work, but they go there for the health care of the kids and the family.
And if we do it that way, you know, it's really, if you increase what we pay as far as premiums on the health insurance, it's not really giving them, advertising them for a raise, but they're actually getting a raise.
And the only thing I know about that, I mean, of course, that's just something to think about. Of course, it doesn't hit everybody because, there's some people, let's say, work for the school system, their husband has a job that the insurance is covered for them. They don't get any benefit, from it.
I'm not sure our utilization for the county, we have very few people on the family plan. Yeah, very few. It's 14, 15, something like that. I went to private plan for my kids for that reason. It was cheaper to carry them on their own plan than do a family plan here. Of course, as the rates have continued to go up, this past year, I looked at it closely just to make certain with tax deductions and all that, whether or not it was still correct. But if I were not in that now, I couldn't get anywhere close to that plan now. With the Affordable Care Act, it's all changed that.
Well,
that's changed
we used to-
everybody.
Same would go, Gary. I mean, I hate to say, you gotta think outside the box. But you'd almost accomplish the same thing if you did a health savings plan and put the money into a plan and had a third-party administrator and reduce the premiums for everybody and let everybody have that pre-tax. You can accomplish the same thing, I believe. Matter of fact, how many years ago? 5 years ago, we had them come in and give out 6. It's been a while back. But the county can have significant savings, reduce the premiums, include the families into the plan, using health savings.
Now, I've heard people talk about health savings account. I don't know what it is.
Well, the way we had looked at structuring it was that we actually increased the deductibles way up, lowered the premiums, and took the same amount of money. And Stephen Bear hits the mode that he's a young adult male that thinks he's invincible, never goes to the doctor, never has the physical. Doesn't cost the healthcare plan a lot of money. And so he never gets really any of that money out of the health savings for this plan that you mentioned. Gary Houseman's an old guy, has a lot of problems. He probably maximizes that money. The attempt is to have enough young people in the plan that doesn't use healthcare to keep your premiums low and put that money in the health savings account for those that do use the premium. It's basically, I hate to call it high deductible, but it's sort of that principle. But you can control your health costs. The problem, when we talked about that with the school system, teachers don't like that plan. They just want the Blue Cross the Anthem card. They don't care what happens. It's a hard sell to people that want to think they're professionals. That's an issue.
And unfortunately, by not having the family plan or a lot of youth in the plan, the actuarials say that actually hurts you down the road because it ends up the people you're carrying in the plan are the people more likely to use the insurance than the ones that don't.
Well, you see, one thing that we have that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is, I know we used to have a subscriber in children. I guess that was to, like, help maybe, single parents or whatever. But right now, a single plus one, so I'm assuming that's a child or a spouse? All right, is 482, I mean, out of their cost per month, 482.85. But so if somebody gets married, it's 482.85 per month. They have one child, it jumps up to $939 a month. If they have 3 more kids, it's still $939. That doesn't make sense. I mean, it does for people that have large families. It's an advantage. But if people have smaller, but
well, it's all about the statistical. How many people have families like that? That's the deal. And if really our health care here and our price really depend if you go to page, whatever it is, his report, page 52, the retiree health care, the OPEB, the retirees being on the health care system basically raised that whole issue cost. It's a hidden cost to all the younger people on the plan. So, what they're saying, net OPEB end of the year was $734,000. That's what they cost above what they paid. You'd be better off taking all retirees and getting a retiree insurance policy for them and letting all the healthy ones on one plan and let them have a lower premium and let them have their families in. It's a balancing act, healthcare, taking care of the older employees that give a lot of service versus the younger ones.
well, I like that, taking care of older employees. I'm liking it more and more.
So
Well,
this is the only thing, I'll assure you that we've looked at it every year, and it's a tough.
Well, it's going to keep getting worse every year until they do something with, and premiums on young people are under Obamacare is outrageous.
Well, you heard Bruce say today his premium went up this huge amount of money. When I listened to him, my granddaughter's out on her own health care plan now, and she's paying the same thing he's paying.
Yeah.
I said, she needs to go find another provider. He's got a really good deal.
Well, I just brought that up, just something to think about.
What else do we need to discuss as far as what we was going to discuss tomorrow afternoon?
Well, basically, we talked about the healthcare, I guess we'll put all that together. The premiums, new premiums will be here second week of February. We'll have this pay classification study done prior to the budget in a few weeks. Land use and new revenues was what I had on my list. I guess last thing I had on my list was, you heard it in the audit, we've controlled costs probably as good as anybody in the country. But I'm not sure that there's anything else that you can chisel out of that operating costs.
Yeah, just because we're not spending anymore doesn't mean that operating costs hadn't increased. I mean, as far as purchasing what we've had to cost to operate.
When you see that audit and financial forecast, and you see that you've got the same operating cost that you had in 2010, you're in 2015.
Pretty good.
You better thank your lucky stars that you can have. I doubt there's many businesses out there that's managed that. But I'm telling you today, I don't think that that's sustainable ever.
Depends on your growth.
Well,
I mean, spending, as far as revenue, as far as taxes and stuff, it depends on the growth of the county, really, is what we have to look at, raising
well,
taxes
if
and
you look
stuff.
at that audit, look on the county operating side, we're at the same. The school operating side went from 8 million to 12 million.
Yep.
So all your money's went towards the school, which is okay. I have no problem with that. I just soon have a bunch of good working, educated kids out there to take care of me in another year.
That's what I say, you either take care of them and get them a good education, or you see them across.
I'm all for it. Let them I want them to have $50,000 a year jobs.
I'd like for $50 million, $50,000 a year jobs to be here in Wythe County.
I just don't want to have a euthanasia.
Euthanasia. Well, what we talked about at lunch, when, is there a decision that'll be made on that, or when? Did you?
2016 is when they start construction. So this summer by fall they'll make a decision and then move forward with construction.
Okay.
That's the reason it's important to throw out that graded line so that they don't have to be moving dirt in the wintertime.
Okay.
I agree.
Now would be the time to go have prayer, dearie, out there.
Well, it's going to be a challenging budget.
It keeps getting harder and harder every year to.
I don't know, it gets harder. It's a different kind of decisions. I always think every year is the most difficult, but I believe that we're sort of a pivotal point with benefits and stuff.
And you know, next year, VRS goes up 2%.
Okay. When does that level off?
The actuarial study, ours goes up 2% next year. School boards goes up 2% next year. 2016, 2018, there's an additional 3% to get it to right at 20%, and then it should be self-funded.
You know, as much as the stock market has went up this year, VRS should have done well.
Well, there may be a reason the guy that's over VRS is losing.
Yeah, I seen the new lady that's temporary heading up VRS.
There's one job out there that I wouldn't mind having be over VRS. That's the only guy in the state of Virginia that's not on the pay scale.
Okay.
Well, we'll put the budgets together with what we have. I think the budget committee got an email that we're going to have.
Monday at noon.
Oh.
Have we received any more proposals?
Oh, for the waste, no, we've only got one. I've got to do some calling tomorrow to find out why people are not submitting proposals.
You know, I gotta tell you, I've been in the school system.
Okay. So Art and Gary will meet at 12 on Monday.
Yeah, I've got that down, wait a minute, I thought I did. Okay, yeah, yes, oh, at what time, at 12?
12 to 2.
Yeah, I'm buying lunch.
Okay, at noon? Okay, that's why I couldn't find it. You said 12, and I was looking for 12, and when you say 12, it says noon on your,
Is that steak and lobster if you're?
Give me Rambo sandwiches up at Orlando.
The Barron Springs meeting is Thursday night.
Thursday night, 6
6.
o'clock, I believe.
I'm not going to be able to be there. I didn't know that was scheduled, and I'd scheduled another meeting.
Well, this is all about the change of where people had to pay connection fees and not pay connection fees. It's all about telling people that they've got to sign a contract. If you don't sign a contract, we're not going to set you a meeting.
Right.
And it's just this new thing about no connection fees, and we set meters for people that really don't want to water. We're just gonna send them a minimum bill anyway. They never, so it's all about informing them about the schedule and how things are gonna go down on this new revised way we're doing business on water.
And Coy, Joe, and myself was going to be there.
Well, I would be there. I didn't know that it was scheduled, and I'd scheduled another meeting,
Well,
Thursday.
I guess as a staff, we got together and decided we need a meeting down here to tell them.
Hey, I don't mind you all going without me.
Well, from what Bill said, I've talked to some people down in there. Most of the people down there want the water anyway.
Well, that was the proper word, most.
That
was the proper word, most.
Most.
It'll be different from meeting at retreat.
I wouldn't go say all the people. I said most of the people down there won't.
That's what I thought when Bill said that. I thought, man, it wasn't nothing like the people were rural retreat then, was it?
Well, they wasn't before that. I've got calls on from the water line from up Rural Retreat that really called and complained. There wasn't but really 2.
Well, that's true.
I'll be sending an email. There's supposed to be an open house at Carrington over in Rural Retreat. I just don't know the date yet. That y'all are invited to come over before they start moving the people.
That's on your end, Gary. Do what?
They got a room for you, Coy.
If I keep sitting here, I may have to go get one.
So we can adjourn?
Yes.
Okay. If no other business is to come forward, board, I declare us adjourned.